I call this pre-meeting briefing of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 6:05 PM on January 18th, 2018. The purpose of this pre-meeting briefing is to conduct a briefing session with administrative staff regarding the posted agenda for the regular board meeting scheduled for 7 PM on January 18th, 2018. For the record, all board members are present. For the record. Board members, do you have any questions regarding consent agenda items?
I do.
Ms. Rabachi.
Thank you. On item 6G, check me, did I get it right? On the upgrades to the sound system equipment? That's not right?
Well, not,
That's G.
That's 6G?
Yeah, it is, 6G.
what am I looking at? I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay, go ahead on.
So the list of schools, there's some lists of the schools on there that I would consider new school. And so I was wondering if we could get some more information on exactly what the upgrades requested by the Fine Arts Department were to those schools. I'm not familiar with the condition of all the schools.
Yes, so, well, I'll give you a general overview.
And that,
And so, Brett Barr, Director of Fine Arts, actually reviewed all the campuses. Even though some of the schools were new, some of their equipment was antiquated or not even there. So each school was a little bit different. So the sound systems are really pretty simple type sound systems. It varies from any single campus. But it really was dependent on what specifically was happening at those campuses you visited.
okay, so not like a replacement, maybe if things had gotten broken or lost, or just replacements of items?
Correct. Or not even actually including some of the space.
Okay.
So the whole decision wasn't age dependent at all. It was really just what they needed.
Okay. And y'all vetted those
We did,
needs
yeah.
and, okay.
And just a sidebar, this was a initiative that started quite a few years ago. So this is actually completing the whole project.
Okay. That was mine. Thanks.
Mr. Shackman?
In following up on that same question, because we're looking at a number of projects and construction and options and all sorts of exciting possibilities for us, this sound equipment isn't anything that's permanent, and we just want to, don't resurface the road and then come in a month later to tear it up for sewer lines.
And Mr. Shackman, I appreciate the question. To keep that thought in the presentation language, that
Okay.
actually will come up again. So
Great.
we're looking very closely at that to make sure anything we do now won't have to be replaced or removed.
Great.
Anything else, board members?
The one other question that I had, and it's an exciting program, and I think we're all supportive of it, but I noticed that we had budgeted $35,000 and change for IB, and we're now needing another $35,000 and potentially $10,000 more. Can we,
Yeah, Dr. Warnock can tell you where that.
do we have twice as many kids in it, I hope?
No, when we looked at an aggregate, the training needs and then anticipated testing volume, just the number was going to exceed the $50,000 threshold. We've paid for those out of separate budgets in the past, so we haven't put those together. And Gary coming in and doing a review had said, we really need to aggregate these costs into one dollar amount since the entity's the same. So we had schools doing professional development out of funds, and then we had the test ordering coming from another budget source, so putting those together. So the money has been allocated and budgeted, it's just an aggregate.
Getting it approved. Well, it is a great program, and we want our kids to be involved.
Anything else, board members? Okay, Dr. Burns, we got any administration reports?
Yes, sir, we do. Dr. Warnock, you want to go first?
Sure. Continuing our updates on accountability, I'm sure you've seen in the news media that the Federal Department of Education has questioned some of Texas's proposal for the accountability system and has given the state a limited time to rework our accountability plan. So some of the pieces that we talked about last month are likely to change. So that is all in flux. We'll get more information from the commissioner at the end of this month at TASA, TASB, and at the Accountability Forum. But we expect some of the things that we have been told and planning on with regard to the accountability system will be changed and different. So just wanted you to be aware of that. The federal government and the state government have reduced subsidies for advanced placement in international baccalaureate testing for free and reduced students. The district had made the decision 2 years ago to subsidize costs and to set a uniform pay structure across the district for both our free and reduced students and our full pay students. Students that don't qualify for free and reduced lunch, if they're paying exam costs of $95 to $100, and students taking 5, 6 exams, that's quite a burden for parents. And so we had offset the cost and set a same structure, so students at Turner were paying the same as students at Creekman across the board. Because of that reduction in federal and state subsidies for those tests, we're going to have to increase our costs this year from $15 for free and reduced students to $25 per exam for free and reduced students, and from $55 for full pay students to $65 for full pay students. So there'll be a $10 cost to offset that reduction of federal and state subsidy. We will continue to subsidize at the same dollar amount that we have in the past. And of course, principals will work with students that come and express a need or concern, and we have some education resources and some grant funding that we could also use if there's a need to help offset that. I wanted to share too something really exciting that we're embarking on, and we have cautious optimism. The Dallas County Community College District Foundation has been in year 1 of implementation this year of what's called the Dallas County Promise. You may have heard of it, but it's an attempt to provide last dollar funding and gap for every child in Dallas County to get their associate's degree, and then partnering with universities in the region to continue that at no cost to the student except for books. So they're looking to partner with school districts. There are 31 schools, I believe, in Cohort 1. Early College High School is one of them. They identified Cohort 1 schools based on those districts that had early college high schools. Those were their first campuses. But we met with them in November, and we've had 2 meetings this week with the foundation and with Jobs for the Future, which is the agency that will be writing the competitive application to have input on being a Cohort 2 school, which would be really exciting, would really open up some opportunities for our students and give us access to some data sharing information and the possibility for our students to have college paid for in Dallas County is really exciting. So it's a business coalition, lots of donors, and economic development is part of the driver. So the application will open March 1st, and we plan to submit application for all of our comprehensive high schools. So.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Warnock. Board members, look for some more information in your weekly correspondence. As we get more stuff, we'll tell you about those, so you can be up to date on the latest and the greatest things that are happening. Okay, so Ms. Tillman.
Yes, just wanted to remind everyone that our May 5th election, our calendar events has started. As of yesterday, we began accepting application for board member positions. Those can be submitted through February 16th. So we just wanted to let everyone know that those are available, and we are ready to go with our deadlines as we move forward. We'll be bringing forward our election order at the next board meeting on February 1, so we have that prepared with just a few deadlines that we need to get from the election office to finish that up, so that'll be available in 2 weeks for the board to act in time of that deadline. So just wanted to let everyone know about that. You also may hear about transportation services moving forward. We have started posting positions to begin interviewing and offering positions to our DCS staff or any other eligible candidates. We may have some bumps over the next 4 months, so wanted you to be aware DCS has started really winding down a little bit earlier than what we were expecting. They have discontinued their training department, which was where we would fill driver positions. So that's going to cause us a little bit of grief over the next 4 months. This was not something that we were anticipating. So our current openings, there's basically no pool, so we have some folks over there that are driving shifts all day, and then they're doing their job as dispatcher or mechanic after they do 2 runs. So we're really appreciative of the effort they're putting in to make sure our kids get transported. So we're very hopeful that we can hang on to the drivers we have so that we don't have any additional openings. And we're looking right now how we can develop and train applicants as we find them. So those are the challenges we're facing immediately over the next 4 months. So if you hear anything, you'll know the background as to why we do have so many driver openings. So
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tillman.
Ms. Klein?
Stay tuned, there'll be more information about that as well. Ms. Klein?
I've been reading in the newspaper about the city of Dallas and school crossing guards. Does that apply to the Dallas one I think we have up by Long?
Yes, it does. Currently, as it stands, the city of Dallas will be paying Dallas County the money it needs to pay the crossing guards, but Dallas County will continue to be the entity to pay them right now until this year ends, and then the city of Dallas is responsible by law and will be taking them back over.
And just information-wise, most cities do pay for
They do.
crossing guards.
This
It's
is a
not a school
unique-
district function
Yeah, good point, great point. This is a very unique
arrangement.
arrangement,
Okay.
that's a good word.
So I have one more question. SROs, are they
Yes.
gone?
Yes, Ms. Tillman, you want to give them an update on that, how we've
we did
transitioned?
have 3 SROs that we were utilizing through Dallas County schools, 2 in Irving and 1 in Dallas. We had, as a temporary solution, developed a district resource officer position so that we could finish out the year with these folks. We had posted those positions. We had those 3 individuals apply, and so we're looking to continue 2 of those through the end of the year. 1 has accepted another offer, so now we're going to look at what options we have to fill that spot, and then look for a long-term solution going into the next year. But they will be with Dallas County Schools till January 31, and then they're coming on board with us February 1.
Thank you.
Dr. Burns, I'm sorry. Just for tonight's student achievement presentation, we hope that you'll get a chance to explore in the lobby. We have different STEM activities and makerspace activities set up out here for you and the audience to see some of the things that are happening in our schools. And we're going to ask you to come down from the dais and participate. We have some students that'll be the experts to help you in a STEM challenge. So
good.
we're going to have students from Davis and Central and Rainwater. So the Davis team will be at that far table, so we'll ask Mr. Matthews and Mr. Bocek to join that far table. Will be Davis. In the center, our coding challenge, we'll have Mr. Ramos, Ms. Klein, and Mr. Fleming will be here at the center table with students from Central. And then over here, we'll have students from Rainwater, and Mr. Shackman and Ms. Valenzuela will be here with this team at Rainwater. Okay? So it'll be fun and engaging, so.
Not a bit embarrassing. Yeah, that's right.
Right? I have one of these at home that can make me feel inadequate.
It will be in the spirit of learning. right?
Absolutely.
In the spirit of learning.
Nothing we can study for during dinner or anything, I mean, okay.
I got some pretty neat deals out there.
We may learn more, I'm not sure about that.
I've overseen all.
Nice. You're helping the
That's
needy.
right. That's right. I'll be there to help
I
all
got
of
some
you.
pretty
as you
neat
move.
toys out there.
I just have a couple things on my list. I do want to take a moment, as all of us probably were watching the weather Monday night, into the night and into the morning. I want to take a minute to compliment our team, David and his team in the transportation help that we had, Tanya and Angela with the communications. It was a long night, but we felt like we needed to do our diligence and make sure we made the right decision. And depending on who you ask, there's a few kids that have told me that they wish we were to cancel. But nonetheless, we
That's
did
always.
the best thing for the district in the conditions we felt like we could come to school, and that's why we make that decision always. So, but it was a team effort always, and so I want to thank all those people, took everybody. There were people out driving the roads at 2 a.m. Monday morning, and then up the rest of the time to make sure we had made the right call. So anyway, so thank the team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a little bit about wellness. We have not, at this point, we believe, had too big a dip in attendance with this time of year with a lot of illness, but that could be upon us. In fact, maybe already. We just want to encourage adults and children to make sure that they're washing their hands and taking care of themselves, because it is a dangerous flu and it is spreading. And so, a public service announcement, let's be mindful of that for everyone. Board Appreciation Month in January. We'll be doing a little bit of that during the regular meeting to appreciate you. As I've said before, we appreciate you every month. We just do it more in January. No. But we do appreciate all that you do. I think the public needs to recognize that you do this for no fee. You do this for the students in our school district, and you volunteer your time. It's a gift of time that you give us, so we do appreciate that. And you do have a nice red bag that with compliments of the different campuses and the team, so just a little token of our appreciation of that. And we'll do a little bit more during the regular meeting as well to thank you. So, last thing, the spring calendar. If you thought the first semester went fast, second semester goes even faster. So we'll try to make sure that your spring calendar is up to date with all the events, all the school activities, as well as the community activities that you may want to attend. And put your track shoes on, because it will be a fast second semester. And that's all I have for tonight's pre-meeting report. Ms. Scribner or Ms. Smith, do you have anything additional for the board that they need from their
I have one more
board stuff?
question.
Yes, ma'am.
During the weather event, there was a school district suffering bus problems, but they said it was due to drivers due to DCS. Do we anticipate that as the school year wraps up that we're going to have bus driver problems?
We do see some challenges over the next 4 months. Districts are starting to raise the rates to try to fill their positions because, again, normally DCS would be training, and as we had openings, there would be people in the training program that were coming out ready to, they would have their CDL and be ready to go. That's about a 45-day process. Right now, there are no candidates going through that process. So the shortage is going to grow until districts gear up and have the ability to go through that 45-day process with candidates. DISD posted for their drivers, and they raised the beginning rate $1 over what DCS was paying. So that has the potential to pull drivers. If we have drivers that are closer to those service centers, we may lose some of those drivers. So we're just monitoring all of the activity that's happening. Several other districts have raised the pay rate. So all of those are going to play into our openings. We have about 14 driver shortages right now. We have a larger standby pool, and those are drivers who don't want to commit to a daily route, but like to come in and sub routes. So we do have a larger pool, and that's what's helping us with our shortage. And then, of course, all of our staff right now are going out and driving routes. So
yes, it's going to be, supply and demand is definitely going to be
So are we technically
enforced.
able to hire people now, or we can't hire them until after the end of the year?
Well, they wouldn't be driving a bus under us yet, but we can start hiring them to bring them in after DCS ends. So
And
we
do-
wouldn't,
right.
we might bring on some help to that in transition before, but the drivers actually will be driving under Dallas County until July.
And Dallas County is willing to partner with us and make hires. They're just no longer willing to train them, recruit
Right.
them, and assign them out to service centers.
They are dismantling, as was the charge, and so wherever Dallas County feels like they can cut their cost right now, then they are doing that and dismantling it fairly quickly. So,
Thank you.
okay. Well, that's the end of our reports tonight. Mr. Matthews, I'll go back to you.
All righty. Any other comments or questions, board members? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of our agenda. This meeting is adjourned at 6:25 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, I call this regular meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District Board of Trustees to order at 7:02 p.m. on January 18th, 2018. Board members, district staff members, and members of the audience, you are free to join me in standing as Carol Sparks from Holy Covenant United Methodist Church provides a welcome message, and remain standing for our pledges. Carol?
Well, it is wonderful to see everyone here because I have children, almost too many. They laugh, I'm the little old lady that has too many children, and she doesn't know what to do with them. But what I know is that you're here because you love children too. And so that is the gift that you give our community. They're the gift that our children will have a future tomorrow that will be beyond our imagination. So let us offer a word of thanks for you and for our children and for our community. We come together so that we can be all that we can be. We allow the light of God to shine within us, and we reach out with a hand of nurture, a kindness rooted in grace. And we pray that the children will come to know all that you would have them be, so that then they can offer themselves to the world, and we, in fact, live in hope, because they are among us. Amen.
Now Randy Shackman will lead in our Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, followed by Richard Fleming and the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. As a district, we dedicate all our efforts and resources to our goal of high achievement for each student. The board uses this goal to guide all deliberations, decisions, and actions. You will get to see all deliberations, decisions, and actions of the board in open session, with the exception of some items which may be discussed in a closed session, as stipulated by Texas Government Code Section 551, commonly known as the open meeting law. These items typically deal with personnel matters, consultation with our attorney, and real estate. For the record, all board members are present. We do constitute a quorum and may conduct business on behalf of the district. As required by Board Policy BBD Local, let the minutes reflect that all board members have completed or exceeded, and most of us, all of us have exceeded, and just go ahead and put that out there, the number of continuing education training hours required for the year 2017. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before moving on to the next agenda item, I would like to remind you that the board encourages comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or a representative of a group, may do so during agenda item number 5, audience for guests. Excuse me. Please submit your request to do so on one of the forms provided on the table just outside the boardroom door. You may place the completed form in the box provided on that same table, or present your completed form to Administrative Assistant Mrs. Sharon Scribner, right over there. And when the board addresses agenda item number 4, audience for guests, you will be invited to the podium to speak to us. Now, before we go on to the next agenda item, allow me to read the following statement. I am deeply saddened to share that former board member James Good passed away on January 8th, 10 days ago, 2018. James's true passion has always been education. After becoming the first member of his family to graduate from college, he devoted his skills, his adult life, to making sure others had the opportunity to pursue their own education and to encourage them to never stop learning. After being an actively involved parent of 4 children in the Carrollton-Farmers Branch School District, he was encouraged by other parents to run for the school board, where he spent 18 years as a trustee, including 3 years as board president. In addition, he served on the board of directors for the Texas Association of School Boards. As a proud member of the Farmers Branch Chamber of Commerce, former chairman of the board, he was instrumental in creating the Farmers Branch Chamber Education Committee and Youth Leadership Program to encourage high school students to develop the skills they'll need to be leaders of their peers, as well as in professional pursuits. We, the district, we are deeply grateful to James's dedication to the students, staff, and families of CFB ISD. His legacy will live on. And please just join me in a moment of silence as we remember our good friend, James Goot. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will now proceed with agenda item number 2, student achievement presentation. Dr. Burns.
Thank you, President Matthews, members of the board, and to our audience here tonight. Great, standing room only. We appreciate that you've been here, that you're here tonight to hear more about the district, listen to the business of the district, and most of all, for your support of the district. So we thank you for being here. I think we need a bigger room. So we start every meeting with the main thing. The main thing are students, and the main thing for us is student achievement, high achievement for each student. So we want to always talk about what are we doing as a team, as a community, as a district to continue to try to reach our goal of high achievement for each student. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about technology and all of the exciting things we're doing in CFB. Dr. Warnock.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. It is my pleasure tonight to share with this great group a little more about STEM. So STEM means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and the best way to do that is to show you. So we're going to ask our board members to come down from the dais here. So we have 3 teams that are going to be competing in some STEM challenges with the assistance of some amazing CFB students. So our team from Davis Elementary will be over here with Mr. Matthews and Ms. Herbacek. Our team from Central Elementary is going to be here with Mr. Ramos, Mr. Fleming, and Ms. Klein. And then our team from Rainwater Elementary is going to be right here with Ms. Valenzuela and Mr. Shackman. So we'll let everyone get in place here. Welcome, welcome. All right, we want to ask our principals who are here, want to introduce each of them to share with us who's joined them from their campus to help us in our board STEM challenge. So from Davis Elementary, we're pleased to have our principal, Lisa Williams, here tonight. Ms. Williams, will you introduce your students?
Yes, this is Alondra Bustillos and Jude Oresti.
All right, thank you. Welcome. And from Central, Mr. Atchison.
Yes, today we're joined by our 5th grader. We have Genesis, and we have our 4th grader, Denzel.
Perfect. Thank you. And Ms. Thomas, our principal at Rainwater Elementary.
Today we're joined by Landon Izell and Caden Crone.
All right, thank you. So welcome to our students who are really going to be our experts here in our STEM challenge, right? So we have 2 challenges that we're going to be doing. So one is our team from Davis and our team from Rainwater. You have materials at your table. You have red cups, straws, cotton balls, strings, rubber band, and a little Lego figurine. Your job is to build the tallest cup tower, so it's a competition, to see with our Lego figurine on top of the tower without touching the cups with your hands. So you can use the materials that are there at your table, but you may not touch the cup with your hands, okay? So that's your challenge, and we're going to see which team can build the tallest tower when we say go. Our STEM challenge, coding challenge in the middle, is going to be 2 different challenges. So you're going to break into 2 teams. We have one coding in Minecraft and one coding in Lightbot. And your challenge is to get through as many of the levels as you can. So in the time allotted, you have 4 minutes. On your mark, get set, go. All right, so over here we have some strategy going on. We're using straws and strings to try to move the cups. We're using those like tongs and the cotton balls. All right, it's hard to flip the cup with the straws, what we're seeing. Up here you can see what's happening with our Minecraft and Lightbot. Okay, so this group's taking a different strategy. They're collaborating as a team, so all four using the rubber band and string. I bet they're hoping that the other team isn't really listening to what I'm saying. Yeah. We've been asked for a time check. How much time do we have?
Did you set a time?
We have 1 minute and 44 seconds. Okay, it looks like Team Rainwater might be making some more, the taller tower. I don't know. The tower might fall. No, it's safe. Okay, good. Don't forget your Lego figurine has to be on top of your tower. 55 seconds. Seconds, team, 30 seconds. All right, time's up, hands up. All right, time's up, hands up. Okay, so let's see who was our winner of our cup challenge. Okay, we want to take a second and have our teams discuss with the principal, who's going to be our reporter out to the group. What were some of the skills that you had to use to participate in the challenge? What were some of the skills that your team had to use to participate in your challenge? So take a minute and talk. Students and our board members, what were those skills? All right, if you'll wrap up your thinking, we're going to hear from our reporters. So let's start with Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, what were some of the skills that your team had to use to participate in the challenge? And what are some of the things that you have happening with STEM learning at Davis?
Well, our team reported that they had to have patience, they had to communicate with each other, interact with the items while engaging with each other. They had to think of creatively solving a problem of getting that little guy up there, and they came up with some different ideas. And so our goal is to produce a skill set within students so they can proficiently, very proficiently, conduct analytic investigations, propose solutions and resolutions to real problems that we're facing, and can speak intelligently about the process. So every day, they need opportunities like this and to go beyond the traditional classroom activities and the traditional instruction in order to have the sense of seeing and feeling themselves as mathematicians, as computer programmers, whatever scientists, thinkers, problem solving together. And when they feel that emotional connection, that gives them the motivation to try harder, to dream bigger, and to decide, yes, I am going to stay in school and it's worth it. Yes, and amen to that. Thank you. That's right.
All right,
So,
thank you.
come see our booth. I'm just going to give a plug for next Thursday night. We have this huge fair. So come to the Davis Room because you're going to see a lot of students, including kindergarten through 5th grade, in action with STEM activities.
All right, thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Atchison, let's hear about your group.
So our group shared that some of the skills that they had to utilize in order to do the coding challenge was, first of all, reading, that there was actually more reading involved than maybe you might anticipate in coding. They also had to practice doing it over and over again because it doesn't always work the first time. So learning how to practice through iteration, to have the opportunity to do something more than one time. Denzel also shared that one of the skills that he had to use was failing a lot. When we talked earlier, he said that there was some of the challenges he couldn't get through when we were practicing for tonight's event. And so when him and Genesis met together, they had deep conversations about, okay, well, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to make this work for us? So those were some of the skills that they were using. At Central, we are always implementing that mindset where we want our kids to constantly be pushing themselves, to be thinking about how can we do this even better, like Ms. Williams was saying. And STEM activities give the children an opportunity to practice through iteration, gives them the opportunity to not do it just one time, but to do it multiple times. And so many times in our lives, we do things once and then we say we master them, we'll move on. But STEM's really designed to give the children the opportunity to have that experience multiple times, multiple experiences, and get better and better each time they do it. And so there's a lot of value in that for the kids, not only in developing a growth mindset, but also becoming true critical thinkers as they go forward into their life. And since you gave a plug, we'll give a plug too. Next Thursday night, the Central Makerspace is going to be in full operation over at R.L. Turner High School. And so we will have our 3D printer out there. We'll have some of the stuff the students have been creating. We'll have lots and lots of Lego. So if you want to come build some stuff, we'll have a lot of fun. So had to do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Central. All right, so let's hear from our Rainwater team, some of the skills and then what some of the ways you're incorporating STEM at Rainwater.
All right. Well, we talked about at our table that it took lots of teamwork right off the bat. And in teamwork, it's very important because it takes sometimes quite a few minds together to make a challenge happen. So we talked about teamwork and cooperation and with each other, and then just communication. And working off of each other's talents because they immediately started off taking the cups off and working with them, and then it just all of a sudden morphed into one person thinking, okay, wait a minute, I can do this, and this, I can do this. So they just started working on the piece together. So it's obviously, it's all about teamwork, it's about cooperation, it's about, knowing our talents and working off of those things. And that's what we do at Rainwater each and every day, is that we give the kids in various grade levels the opportunity, as Mr. Atchison said, Ms. Williams said, to work with each other through the STEM projects, through whether it's in PE and they're making up a game, because in PE we do have STEM activities and the kids have to make up a game and they have to do it in a group of 3. And then, so obviously no bickering can go on, so they work through that, put the game out there for other students to play. So we provide opportunities each and every day for our students to engage with technology, whether it's through the Ozobots or through coding or through an unplugged activity, kind of like what we were doing tonight. We provide kids those opportunities. And so we, in fact, provide like a whole week. We call it Adventure. So each grade level has an Adventure week, but in that week, they're able to really dig deep and get into what's going on with the technology, not just to do the surface activities, but you have to go deeper, as Mr. Atchison mentioned. It's that repetitive over and over, getting to know what that piece is all about. So that way they know what to do when they're alone, when they don't have anyone else there with them. So these are just some of the activities that we do at Rainwater. And I guess in that the two of them made the plug, I'm going to make the plug too. Come out and see the Rainwater Room next Thursday night at RLT. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Let's give all of our schools a round of applause, and thank you. Team, if we want to come and help clear. And board members, you are welcome to return to your seats. We have just a little bit more, so as y'all are getting settled, we're going to clear this space. We want to take you into some classrooms here in our district. And we're going to show you in just a second, once everybody's getting settled. Thank you. All the video that you're about to see is footage from our classrooms. These are all our students, our classrooms, our projects, our competitions, all in CFB that were filmed in just the past 2 weeks. So when we sent out, we're looking for interesting STEM activities, lessons that you have happening on your campus. We had a barrage of opportunities to come out and film because this is happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere due to the work of our campus principals, our amazing hardworking teachers, and our central office staff that help support science and our digital learning. If you're on our science team, our digital learning team, would you please stand so that we can recognize you and thank you for your effort and work? Right. So we want to take you for a moment inside our classrooms so you can see, you saw what it looks like here, but what it looks like in our spaces.
STEM classrooms are active and collaborative. Hands-on projects bring students together to solve real-world problems. STEM students are curious. They teach one another to analyze, communicate, and think scientifically, mathematically, and creatively. STEM schools are dynamic. Science, technology, engineering, and math are woven into everything a child learns, providing a common language that spans the globe. Motivated students, dedicated teachers, and incredible programs push learning beyond the classroom. Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD is leading the way in STEM education and laying a foundation for every student to succeed. Learn more about STEM and CFB's other innovative programs at www.cfbstem.com.
So So we are really excited to announce the launch of 5 STEM academies that will be opening in 2018-19 across the district. They're going to be geographically located so that there are options and choices if STEM learning is the right fit for your child, that there'll be a school-wide focus on that in these specialized academies. We know that parents have choices when they make their decision for their child's education, and we believe that CFB is the choice because of all of the programming options that we offer. We're going to be launching a signature program fair where you can come and see all of the range of possibilities from fine arts academies, international baccalaureate, dual language academies, our middle and high school programming, and tons of fun activities for kids to do. Everything from the planetarium to animals on display. It is going to be such a great fun night next Thursday at R.L. Turner from 5:30 to 7:30, and we look forward to welcoming the community to come find out about your choice in CFB. Thank you to, again, our schools and our team that makes that possible. That concludes our presentation, Dr. Burns.
Thank you, Dr. Warnock. Mr. Matthews?
Yes, sir.
Members of the board, you've had the opportunity to see lots of things in our classrooms before, but I think it's always a little bit more real when it's hands-on for you. So we want to thank you for your participation, and those videos will be up on YouTube later for everybody to see. But it is great to be in a district that puts student achievement as its top goal, its only goal. But we get there by innovating and inspiring, right? We got to innovate, we got to inspire and integrate, and that's just the next journey that this district's on. Is that as we attempt and we go forward to accomplish our goal, we know we've got to continue to innovate and inspire for the next generation. So thank you to our staff here today and everyone here for. It took a lot of teamwork to put this on, so we want to thank everybody for their part in it, and thank you for coming tonight. So. That's the end of our student achievement presentation. Mr. Matthews.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make? Ms. Robachik?
We have some impressive kids. Impressive kids, because we have impressive teachers too. But I gotta say, when they said you can't touch the red cups, I panicked. I panicked. I did. But you can tell that those activities that are happening in the classroom help those kids look at things differently than we all would do, and it's impressive. Impressive.
One of my favorite things about any board meeting is when we have kids do stuff up here. And it just really tickled me to death. I wasn't too tickled about our effort over here when that team over there, I think y'all must have cheated. It was the only way you could. But be that as it may, when I was in high school, I'm sure we had STEM activities. We had science, I know for sure. Technology. I think electric typewriters were introduced maybe when I was in high school. Engineering, I don't know. Only engineering took place was like Friday nights after a football game or something. Math was arithmetic, but things have changed for sure. But anyway, I'm always overwhelmed and amazed whenever I see our kids. It's just we live in a different world, and our kids are getting prepared for that different world. So thank you to everyone involved. All righty. The next agenda item is number 3, recognition of special guests and announcements. Dr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews, members of the board, and to our audience. To do these incredible things, it takes incredible teachers. And we always recognize at our board meetings what we call very important professionals, AKA very incredible people who make incredible things happen for students so that they can reach their goals. And so we honor them tonight. VIPs, under your chair, you have some gratitude notes. We think you can never have enough gratitude and enough thanks. But every time we get a chance, we're going to thank you and tell you how much we appreciate what you do. So please enjoy reading those. I think you will be both impressed and inspired by what some people wrote in your gratitude bags. So audience here tonight, when your VIP is introduced, we invite you to stand and celebrate with them as we recognize these very incredible people. And at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Matthews to join me down at the front as we introduce our newest members of our VIPs.
Gotta get a little comfortable, you know, when we introduce VIPs in Central. It's a little bit different. Oh, God. Let's get that all set up. Dr. Burns, Mr. Matthews, members of the board, my name is Robert Atchison, and I'm the proud principal of the awesome Central Elementary. We are here tonight to celebrate our newest member of the very important profession of teaching, Mrs. Olga Rodriguez. Mrs. Rodriguez is joined tonight by her mother and father and her awesome husband and her sister and her babies that are sitting right there being so good, and lots of wonderful staff, family, and friends that are here to celebrate with her. So, Mrs. Rodriguez is a geek. I mean this in the finest of ways. As a fellow geek, I truly appreciate the geeky ways that envelop who Mrs. Rodriguez is. You see, a geek is a person who is an expert or a fanatic about any interest and is willing to share that love with anyone who will listen. Mrs. Rodriguez geeks out when it comes to dressing up for school-themed events, as you can see here. She geeks out over reading. She geeks out over Selena. She geeks out about theater. She geeks out about role-playing games. She geeks out about Star Wars and about superheroes and so much more. But most of all, she geeks out about educating the students at Central Elementary School. Mrs. Rodriguez is a proud graduate of R.L. Turner High School and has experienced a very similar path to many of the students that we have at our school. She shares this path each and every year with her students, talking about how it was difficult for her when she was learning to speak English in the classroom, talking with her students about how it was difficult for her when things and people thought she was just a little bit odd or a little bit different. She is, get this, hold on for a second, a self-contained, fourth grade bilingual teacher. That is like a diamond in the rough. Like you find. On top of that, she's also the team lead for her fourth grade team. She dedicates herself to the pursuit of educating each of her young students, and being a marigold for her colleagues. Anyone in her presence grows taller and stronger because of her. As principal, Mrs. Rodriguez is truly a gift. Truly a gift. Why? Because she's always willing to geek out with me about education. Or, well, anyone for that matter. She doesn't look at you like you have four eyes when you come to her with some crazy idea, whether it is asking her to educate the staff in a more unconventional way, aka think Dumb and Dumber, why we should have buddy classes, or she doesn't look at you weird when you ask her to start a drama club for students, or build a team of Central Cubs who start their own entrepreneurial venture by providing products to the other students and selling them to benefit those in need. She truly pours herself into each adventure, sharing her passion, like any good educational geek, to anyone and everyone who will listen. One of Ms. Rodriguez's colleagues said it very well. Olga is constantly finding new ways for her students to learn and be hungry for more. She thinks creatively and is willing to collaborate and share the creativeness with us not so creative people. As an adult, Olga is constantly encouraging me to follow my dreams, so I can only imagine what she does for her students. She inspires me and reminds me daily that our profession is freaking awesome. Sorry about that. It was quoted, I had to say it. Her students are even more enthusiastic about how awesome Mrs. Rodriguez is. Amy shared with us, I think she is the best teacher in the universe because she really understands my feelings and she helps me understand when I don't believe in myself. Denzel shared with us, who's in the audience today, she's always coming up with better ideas to learn. She lets me sit wherever I want and lets me move around. That helps me concentrate more. Lizbeth shared with us that Mrs. Rodriguez is the best teacher because the way she teaches us to learn is very fun. She is funny and nice and understanding, and she really brings joy to our classroom. So let me geek out for just one more moment with you, Olga. Just you and me. Have something special. As Yoda so wisely stated in The Last Jedi, we are what they grow beyond. We are what our students grow beyond. That is the true burden of any master. Olga, you are a master teacher, and you are greatness because your students are growing into greatness. As are your colleagues because of the light and sometimes the geekiness you bring into each of our lives. We are proud to stand with you tonight and each day. Congratulations, and may the force be with you.
Turtleneck. Yeah. All right, I wore a turtleneck from Eddie Bauer and a scarf. So that is my costume tonight. And Robert, I never saw Star Wars, so I know. Oh no, it's okay. All right, good evening, Dr. Burns, Mr. Matthews, and members of the board. My name is Lori Parker, and I'm the principal at Furneaux Elementary, and I am pleased to recognize our VIP recipient, Mrs. Amy Inman. I smile when I think about interviewing Amy Inman a few years ago. Word regarding the upcoming interview seemed to travel very fast. I remember waiting in the conference room at Furneaux and checking emails when one popped up minutes before the interview. The subject was, all the reasons you need to hire Amy Inman. No, it wasn't from Amy, but not long after the interview, here came another email. This time the subject was a little more subtle, putting in a good word for Amy Inman. Amy attended Plano schools and grew up in Richardson, where her parents still live, and she attended Abilene Christian University and finished her degree at the University of North Texas. Amy has an older brother and sister-in-law and is the proud aunt of 2 little nephews who she says are very cute. Amy is married to Chase, who teaches 5th grade at Country Place and is here this evening. They have 2 dogs and 2 rabbits. When Amy isn't at school, she likes to craft and spend time with her friends, though her husband would say her hobbies are primarily organizing and redecorating. Chase, true? Yes, he's nodding. One of the many reasons Amy enjoys teaching is having the opportunity to watch each student grow throughout the year, and she finds joy in getting to know the kids and seeing their personalities come out as the year progresses. A parent approached me at the beginning of the year and said, Mrs. Inman is the best. And I agreed, and I thought, what a nice compliment. Then it occurred to me that her child isn't in Mrs. Inman's class. Then she began to explain that Mrs. Inman offered to tutor her son during the summer in reading and math. Mrs. Inman knew he struggled and lacked motivation as a result. Mrs. Inman seized the opportunity and volunteered to help the student, and as a result, his confidence and motivation increased. What Amy likes about CFB is that our district is all about helping each student and teacher reach their full potential, and that CFB equips and cares about their employees, and her appreciation for what the district provides in resources shows in the way she gives back to her students and campus. Amy is a leader in integrating technology effectively in her instruction and serves on the campus technology committee and is always willing to share with and help others in the use of technology. In addition, she serves as the student council sponsor. Amy is a problem solver by nature, and I told her when I proofed this, my sister found she goes, it says a problem by nature, and I left out the word solver. So Amy is a problem solver by nature, and we appreciate the contributions overall that she makes to our campus by coming up with solutions to maximize learning. A teammate of Amy said, Amy is one of the most dedicated and hardworking teachers at our school, not to mention the fastest. She will get all of her work done in half the time of anyone else and then proceed to help them with whatever the stuff they need. I honestly couldn't have made it in my first year of teaching at Furneaux if it wasn't for Amy Inman. She keeps me on my toes and is always there to help me when needed, which is often. Mrs. Inman, this is the common sentiment from the entire Furneaux staff. We not only know you're a great teacher, but a great coworker as well. Amy chose education because of one of her own fourth grade teachers, and Amy said that she was a teacher who always put her students first and made each one of us feel like we could accomplish anything. I want to be a teacher who empowers kids and makes them feel important and capable of reaching their goals. Mrs. Inman, it appears that you learned well from your fourth grade teacher because you are doing the same for your students, and someday they will remember your impact and say the same about you. Thank you, Amy, for your hard work and dedication and for making a difference in Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD and Furneaux Elementary. We are pleased to recognize Mrs. Amy Inman as a member of the very important profession of teaching.
We're on. Good evening, Dr. Burns, Mr. Matthews, members of the board, friends, families, and colleagues. My name is Diane Hall. I'm the assistant principal at McCoy Elementary, and I'm standing in for Dawn Rink tonight, who's not able to be here. But Jennifer and I did collaborate on our colors, I want you to know. We are here tonight to introduce you to our newest member in the very important profession of teaching, Miss Jennifer Sharp. All right. Coach Sharp has served her entire teaching experience of 12 years, all in CFB at McCoy Elementary as a physical education teacher. As a district, we seek to teach for acquisition, meaning-making, and the transfer of learning. You can see this in action in the daily PE program of our McCoy VIP. All of our students acquire a broad repertoire of PE skills. Coach perseveres to help each student develop proper techniques so that he or she can get the full fun and physical benefit of PE activities. The meaning of PE skills becomes clear to children as they synthesize those skills to participate in PE activities, creative cooperative movement, conditioning, and a wide variety of sports. Every student gets the chance to have active and healthy fun at McCoy. Students transfer these active skills into a lifestyle of fitness. Coach gives many opportunities for children to apply their knowledge to activities: basketball, volleyball, skating, and running. Coach promotes the 30-minute challenge for which students train throughout the year. They begin with 5 continuous minutes of running and steadily grow their stamina. Children end the year with the ability to run 30 consecutive minutes. Each year, the majority of McCoy students reach this goal. Jennifer is the kind of teacher you want to collaborate with and the kind you'd want your children to have. She exemplifies high achievement for each student. She's always willing to lend a helping hand to her teammates as well as her students, and she always does so with a smile, and she may even add a push-up or a jumping jack. McCoy Elementary School, the CFB Department of Elementary Physical Education and Health, and all of Coach Sharp's current, former, and future students are indeed fortunate to have Miss Jennifer Sharp as a member of the very important profession of teaching. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Burns and board members. I'm Penny Coney, and I'm proud to represent McWhorter Elementary this evening as we celebrate Elizabeth Weaver as our VIP. Liz, we need to add Rookie of the Year to your VIP title. Your first year as a librarian, your first year at McWhorter, and the staff selects you as our VIP. And nobody was surprised at that, except maybe you. Albert Einstein is credited with the quote, "The only thing that you absolutely have to know is the location of the library." So if Al was to come into McWhorter Library, what would he see? First, he would find something more valuable than any first edition book, you. A library is just a collection of books without a skilled and caring librarian. You've made our library so inviting by the way you display the books with just the right mix of posters and stuffed animals. You provide the kids with lots of interesting places to sit or lay down with a great book. And that R2-D2 robot in the corner definitely qualifies you as a McWhorter Jedi, not a Central Jedi. Thank you. Our classroom teachers so appreciate their partnership with you. You guide the kids to pick a book on their level and one that might challenge them too. You get to know each student and their interest and suggest books that they might enjoy. You've even convinced the most dinosaur-loving second grader that there just might be a really cool book that doesn't involve a T-Rex. We know librarians or libraries aren't just about paper books anymore, and you've been a very innovative and patient captain of our digital ship. From pre-Kers and their iPads to ancient administrators, hello, trying to figure out this whole hashtag thing, you've been a lifeline. In addition to all your library duties, you've run the book fair and organized our In and Out fundraiser and family movie night. And maybe even most importantly, you always seem to have a secret stash of chocolate you're willing to share at faculty meetings. He might not be as famous as Albert Einstein yet, but I think Alejandro sums up all of our feelings for you when he says, "Thank you for the books you give us. I like the books, but the thing I like most is you, Mrs. Weaver." Liz, thank you for all you do for our McWhorter Coyotes. You most definitely are a VIP.
Good evening, Mr. Matthews, Dr. Burns, and members of the board. My name is Shanna Brown, and I am the proud principal of the Janie Stark Stallions. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our newest member of the very important profession of teaching, Jackie Martin. Jackie's family is also here. It includes her husband, Corey, and her two daughters, Sophia and Mia. And they are here celebrating with us tonight, as long as other members of their family. They enjoy spending time together and doing a variety of activities. Jackie has served our CFB family for 12 years, wearing many hats, such as working in our AVID program, After the Bell program, being an attendance clerk, a tier interventionist, a PASS teacher, and she is currently serving as our content mastery teacher. Jackie is the true definition of selflessness. She spends countless hours creating individualized plans to help our Stark Stallions succeed while also having fun as they learn. She is constantly demonstrating her love of learning to our students by being a lifelong learner herself. Jackie has worked to create a welcoming sense of family and love among her students. No is not in her vocabulary, only positive attitudes and smiles. One of her students said, "Miss Martin is nice because she helps us, but we also help her." She is supposed to be teaching us how to decode tricky words, but we end up teaching her because she gets stuck on tricky words. Miss Martin is truly an actor and an advocate for all of our students. In her 6 years as a Stark Stallion, Jackie has gone above and beyond her official job description. Among the amazing work with our students, Jackie has also become a go-to for our staff and our parents. Jackie serves on a variety of committees as team lead, tech support, behavior support, crosswalk support, emotional support, tool finder, and solution creator. She is a collaborative thinking partner to many of our staff. One of her colleagues had this to say about her. Each day, Jackie shows us that she is the kind of teacher that strives to accomplish high achievement for each student. Teaching, learning, and growing with Jackie Martin has been a highlight of my teaching career this year. Another of her colleagues said, "I feel truly blessed to work alongside such a special, amazing, hardworking, admirable, marvelous, and talented teacher." All of those adjectives are descriptors of Miss Martin and many more. But one of her parents sums it up best, that if Miss Martin can't help, we don't know who could, because we love our Miss Martin. We love our Miss Martin as well, and that is why we are proud to have Jackie Martin join the very important profession of teaching.
Mr. Matthews and members of the board, that includes our incredible recognitions for this evening.
All righty. Before we go on to our district announcements, let me just say a few words about you five ladies. You know, the most important people in this school district are our kids. That's not debatable. The second most important group of people in this school district are our teachers. We have some outstanding teachers in this district. That's why our kids are so well educated. And for you to get picked to be the cream of the crop, folks, that's a big deal. And I hope you consider it a big deal. It's a big deal to us, and it's a big deal to the people you work with. So congratulations, and thank you. Okay, some district announcements are our next agenda item. Dr. Burns, what do you have for the board and the audience?
Thank you, Mr. Matthews and members of the board. We do have some announcements to make, and we're going to include many things in those, but I do want to say to the audience here tonight, January is Board Recognition Month in the state of Texas, and we're going to be talking a little bit about recognizing this incredible board here as well. But I would like for you to join me in giving them a great big hand for their service to this school district. So. But we're not done recognizing you yet. That was just the beginning. So, Miss Angela Shelley Brown.
Dr. Burns and members of the board, I would like to give you an update on the events and initiatives occurring around CFB. Beginning Monday, January the 22nd, CFB will launch a week of fun activities. It is National School Choice Week, and CFB is the best choice for education in our community. Monday, January 22nd at 10 a.m. at Standard Stadium, Dr. Burns will be making a big announcement that will impact every student in CFB. You can watch it live on our Facebook page. The MetroCrest Chamber of Commerce State of Education Breakfast will be held at Brookhaven College Tuesday, January 23rd, beginning at 7:30 a.m. Dr. Burns will be speaking. You can sign up to attend at the MetroCrest Chamber of Commerce website. Wednesday, January 24th, from 3:30 to 5:30 is a staff social. We invite all CFB employees to come to the Texas Room at the ESDC across the street and find out about the new exciting opportunities that we are launching next week. Thursday, you've heard a lot about this already. Thursday, January 25th from 5:30 to 7:30 at R.L. Turner High School is our signature program fair. Every CFB signature program, K-12, will be featured. We will also have a planetarium, live animal demonstrations, robotics, coding, and lots of fun for kids of all ages. K-12, everyone is invited. We will have stargazing afterwards from 6:30 to 8:30 on the tennis courts at R.L. Turner, so come see some awesome stars. Friday, January 26th is a world record day. We will attempt to break 2 world records at one time on the same day at the same time. Every student at 10 a.m. on every campus in CFB ISD will participate in an art project and then a science experiment. We will have the most people at one time doing an art project and doing a science experiment. We'll break 2 world records at the same time. We'll be world record breakers. It's exciting. So that is our fun, exciting week. Lots of other things will be happening, but that is our week to launch some great programs because CFB is the best choice for education in our community. On Saturday, January 27th, you're invited to attend the district's Elementary Olympiad at R.L. Turner High School. You can visit the district's website for more information. R.L. Turner and Newman Smith High School are presenting their musicals. Turner is performing The Little Mermaid starting tonight, January the 18th, 19th, and 20th at 7 p.m. Newman Smith High School is performing Little Shop of Horrors on January 26th and 27th at 7 p.m. Ticket information is available on the district's website. I would now like to invite Dr. Kim Lee, Council PTA Healthy Lifestyles Chair, to share about our PTAs. Dr. Lee.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff. As a parent, I want to say that it's been a privilege to have my kid be here and be educated by you all and being part of this community, because if it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do as a mother. My name is Dr. Kim Lee. I'm serving as the Healthy Lifestyles Chair for the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Council PTA. I'm here to provide an update as to the efforts and activities of both Council PTA and our local PTAs in supporting our mutual goal of high achievement for each student. Membership is a year-long effort for our PTAs, and we have several PTAs receiving awards since our last meeting. The Texas PTA Fall Honor Roll Award, 8 of our PTAs received it for having more membership than the last year, and with either 100 plus or 200 plus members. The Texas PTA President's List Award, 14 of our PTAs received it for having more members than last year by December 22nd. As a reminder, our January Council PTA meeting will be on January 24th at 7 p.m. at Good Elementary. That day, we will have the Reflections Award ceremony to celebrate the great artwork of our students. You are all invited to attend and join us in celebrating the artists within CFB. Springtime is also a busy time for us, for local PTAs, with the creation of nominating committees to help identify those willing to lead the PTAs at our campuses. Elections will be held at the campuses later in the spring, and Council PTA will step in to provide spring leadership training for those new leaders. We are again partnering with the district for 2 parent education opportunities this spring. The first one is January 31st from 6:30 to 7:30 at the Education Services Division Complex, the ESDC. This is for social media and the internet safety, and I encourage you all to attend. February 27th is this from 6:30 to 7:30, about same time, same place at the ESDC. This one is for parents only, and it's how to talk to your children about sex. Both will have free childcare for children 3 years and older, and both will be presented in English and Spanish. Our advocacy efforts continue with spreading our personal stories using the hashtag CFBMattersToMe. We're asking our members to share with our community your CFB friendships, focusing on the relationships you, your student, and family have developed during your time with CFB. Please share your preferred social media platform and use the hashtag CFBMattersToMe so people can see how CFB makes a difference in our community by bringing people together. The CFB Council PTA would like to thank each of you, our CFB School Board trustees, for your dedication to the children in our district. January is School Board Appreciation Month, and we are very grateful for the time, dedications, and service you provide our community and the students you serve. Your actions and decisions affect the present and future lives of our children. As always, the CFB Council PTA thanks you and your continued support for PTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I would now like to invite Doug Herbachik with the City of Carrollton to present a proclamation.
Thank you, Coach Matthews, trustees. Happy New Year, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here this evening. It is January, and on behalf of our mayor, our city council, and our 130,000 residents, I'd like to read the following proclamation. Whereas the mission of the public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and empower them to become competent, productive contributors in our constitutional republic. And whereas local school board members are committed to children and believe that all children can be successful learners and that the best education is tailored to the individual needs of the child. And whereas the local school board members are advocates for public education and responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district. Now, therefore, I, Kevin Falconer, the Mayor of the City of Carrollton, do hereby declare my appreciation to the members of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District Board of Trustees and proclaim the month of January 2018 as School Board Recognition Month here in the City of Carrollton. So thank you all very, very much for everything you do. Carrollton is a redeveloping community of 130,000 residents, and there are 3 key components to successful redevelopment that we learned, and the very top of that is our schools. So just wanted to thank our trustees for everything you do to provide the students in our community with the best education they could possibly have. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. In case y'all missed it. It's on, thank you. In case y'all missed it, Doug called me Coach. That's because he's one of my boys. Back in the day when I was a coach, that's what they call me. And I've been called a lot worse, but Coach is good. I like that. Anyway, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you now that the board encourages comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so during agenda item number 5, audience for guests. Please submit your request to do so on one of the forms provided on the table just outside the boardroom door. You may place the completed form on the box provided on that same table, or present your completed form to Ms. Sharon Scrivener, our administrative assistant. When the board addresses agenda item number 5, audience for guests, you will be invited to the podium to speak to the board. Now, I love a big crowd, and we certainly would love for all of you to hang around till we're done tonight. So please feel free to do that. In case you need to do something else, we're going to take a recess, and I guess you can leave, but we'd rather you just stay. But if you have to leave, you got to leave. So we're going to go recess right now at 8:05. We will recess until 8:15. Thank you very much. This meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees is called back to order. The next item on the agenda is our audience for guests. Before we begin, I will remind our audience members of the board's procedures for handling audience for guests. Anyone who wants to speak during audience for guests must sign in and list the topic they want to discuss. Each speaker will be allowed to speak once during the audience for guests. Each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board, and the audience for guests portion of the meeting will be no more than 30 minutes total, as dictated by board policy BED local. If during that time the board is not able to hear from everyone who has signed up, those who did not have an opportunity to speak will be invited to speak during audience for guests at the board's next regularly scheduled meeting. Because the board wants to hear from as many of you as possible while also keeping the meeting running efficiently, groups of more than 5 people who want to represent a particular viewpoint on a topic should appoint one person to speak on behalf of their group. Again, that speaker's presentation will be limited to 3 minutes. If you speak during audience for guests, either individually or on behalf of a group, please remember that the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda for the meeting. And last, we ask that you not discuss students who are not your own children. Specific complaints should be addressed through the district's grievance process, not in audience for guests. District policy DGBA has been established for addressing employee complaints. Policy FNG is the avenue for filing parent complaints, and policy GF addresses community member complaints. Grievance forms may be obtained at any campus administration office or in the central administration office. Our timekeeper, Ms. Klein, please start the 30 minutes now. Please also time each speaker for 3 minutes. Speakers, the timekeeper will let you know when you have 1 minute left. Ms. Scribner, are there any audience for guests this evening? There is one that I gave Dr. Burks. Okay. When I call your name, approach the podium, and I have Josephine Douglas.
Good evening. My name is Josephine Douglas, and I would like to first thank all of you for your service to CFB ISD. I have one child, and he graduated from CFB ISD. He started out as kindergarten in CFB ISD and graduated from the early college high school. I would just like to share with you a little story that I remember from when he was in kindergarten. He attended kindergarten, and we were in the drive-through at the local Chick-fil-A. I'll never forget it. It was dark, it was nighttime, and he was only 5 years old, but from the back seat, all of a sudden, I heard a question. And he says to me, "Mom, why do my teachers keep calling me black?" And so I quickly looked around at him, and I turned around, and I dropped my head, and I thought about all the times in my life that I had lacked confidence because of the color of my skin, and how it impacted my ability to have a good education, because I felt like I was not good enough, that I could not learn, or that I should be in a specific place with people who achieved on a certain level. And I never wanted my son to know all the things that I had been through, or the lack of self-confidence that I had experienced as an individual growing up and attending public education in the South. And so I never talked to him about what color he was. He didn't know what color he was. And so he knew colors in general. And I didn't want him to be stigmatized because of the color of his skin. So I said to him, "What color do you think you are?" And that little boy, 5 years old, from the back of the seat, Ms. Klein, you know him very well because our children went to school together. He said to me, "I'm brown." So I said to him, "Well, next time they call you black, son, tell them that you're brown." He never asked me that question again. All the way through elementary school, he was a Tiger Cub. He went through the Arrow of Life ceremony. He got to be a Boy Scout. He encountered racism as a Boy Scout, and he wanted to drop out. And I told him, I said, "You have to become an Eagle." I spent my money. I invested in that. I expected for you to be an Eagle Scout. We had an agreement. You would not get a driver's license unless you became an Eagle Scout. So he looked at me and he said, "I quit." I could not tell him that he was having a hard time because he was a black boy. I said, "Okay, well, if you quit, you're going to high school next year, figure out how you're going to get to the bus station, because if you don't want your driver's license, you're going to have to walk in the cold. My car does not operate for you." And so he had to figure out how to get to the bus station, ride the DART bus to get to the early college high school. The first day, it probably was 105 degrees outside, and he got home probably at 7 o'clock. I bought him the DART bus ticket, and he went, and he came back home wet. But that was okay. He continued to do that year after year until he decided he wanted his Eagle Scout, and he wanted his driver's license. And I said, "Well, you know, you can go back and you can complete." So I sent him to a church of black deacons, and they helped him. They tried to convince him. when all these things happened, that he was a black boy and he needed to do certain things. And he could not understand that. He did not believe them. And so he did get his Eagle Scout, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for the help that they tried to teach him how he needed to behave as a young African-American man, but he still could not understand. He got a full 4-year scholarship to Howard University. And he came home for midterms, and he said he needed to study, but he was sleepy. So I said to him, well, why don't you go outside and take a walk, you know, so you can wake up? He said to me, I can't, Mom. I said, well, why not? He says, all my neighbors are white. President Trump has been elected, and there's no way I'm going outside at night now. Finally, he understood what it meant to be a young African-American man in the United States of America. I say to you that confidence and your color, this color of your skin, can impact your education. And teachers need to be aware of that. I share my story with you for no other reason than to say some teachers, white teachers, told me that I could go to college. They encouraged me. I got my master's degree. But it was very, very important, the role that a teacher played in my life. And I think that CFB ISD has done an outstanding job in educating my son. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to go as far as he did. I am grateful. But still, there's room for improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As stated earlier, the board may not discuss or act on any issues that are not posted on our agenda for tonight's meeting. However, the board may refer the comments to the administration for further review or research if necessary. We will now proceed to our next agenda item, consent agenda. The consent agenda is a mechanism that the board uses to approve a number of routine items together with a single vote. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the public notice for this meeting includes the list of all consent agenda items, and the board has been provided ample information about these items in advance. Prior to any action taken on the consent agenda, board members may request withdrawal of individual items for clarification or discussion. Board members, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda at this time? Hearing none and seeing none, board members, do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
The agenda item on term limits until the next board meeting. I think we're still waiting on some additional documentation, or no? Or no? Okay, excuse me. I don't know what I was thinking. Thought we were still waiting on documentation.
Board members, do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda? Ms. Klein?
Approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion from Ms. Klein. Do I have a second? I have a second from Ms. Valenzuela. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. That vote is unanimous. Our next agenda item is number 7, discussion and possible action regarding Board of Trustee term limits. At this time, we would like to hear from any board member with comments that you have about term limits. Mr. Shackman.
Mr. Matthews, the district had sent out some information to us indicating that Texas House Representative Jody Laubenberg has requested and filed a petition with the Attorney General requesting an Attorney General's opinion on the subject of term limits. Pleased that she has done that. I am the individual who wrote the brief that she filed and the rather lengthy research document that went with it. The Attorney General's office received that. They said it was an excellent brief and that they would be able to give us an answer. And then they came up with the idea that as a school board trustee, even though the law says a state trustee of an educational institution, it means college regents, And so Representative Laubenberg carried the ball for us. They usually respond with those in approximately 180 days or less. They have had that about 60 days, and my recommendation would be that as a board, we simply table this item for further consideration as an action item when it comes up, when that comes back. The issue really hinges on one legal issue. Does the state education code empower trustees as trustees over their individual unique school district to make such a determination? Many experts think that it does, and some are saying no, it doesn't. So we're going to find out with the Attorney General's opinion, and I would recommend that we table this till we hear back from the Attorney General.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shackman. Any other comments, board members?
What was,
Ms. Robachick?
sorry, and what was the wording of our question, or the information, what was the request of the Attorney General? Is it to rule on how it's?
To render an official Attorney General's opinion on the subject matter. Can a local independent school district board in the state of Texas establish term limits for use in their district put together?
Okay. Well, I guess my concern over the topic has always been not the issue of term limits, because I don't have a passionate stance one way or the other on that. I believe we have term limits called elections. I mean, and if somebody feels passionately about a certain candidate's or office holder's term, they should get involved in elections. And I agree. My whole concern on any action on this has been that we don't definitively have an answer on whether it's enforceable, and that concerns me.
And that's what
And
we're
I-
trying to get.
Yeah, and so I completely agree and support, no action. And, I don't think we should take action until there's a change in the state election code or law, or ruling either way.
And that's my recommendation. We saw what our legal people brought to us, and it seemed appropriate to get a little bit more definitive answer. So I asked, and Representative Laubenberg carried that torch, and we'll hear something. And if the Attorney General comes back and says no, again, the two different opinions or the two different approaches to the issue, and if they come down on the side of it's not in the purview of a local board for their own local policies, then my recommendation would be that we not go forward. And if they come back and say, yes, it certainly is within the purview, then my recommendation would be that we put it out as a referendum and let the community give us their information as to what they would like. But
So do we have a timeline on the response back?
the Attorney General's office said that they are compelled by Texas rules to have a response within 180 days. That was submitted in early November, so we're about 60 to 65 days in, something like that. So it could be any minute. It could be clear 3 or 4 months from now. So,
Well, and we've had this on the agenda for several months and spent a lot of time talking about it and discussing. And I also believe that a lot of these discussions on something that we don't know if we can do or not detract from our focus of student achievement. And so I want to get the answer, make the decision, and whatever it may be, and move on.
and I agree with you, appreciate your concern in that regard. One of the main considerations I think we have in this regard is that community engagement is dramatically increased. There is more interest in elections, there is more participation. 92% of trustees have been, that run as incumbents have been reelected. We 5 times in the last 20 years have actually just canceled school board elections because nobody's running against an incumbent. And every time there has been an open seat, every time, all 11 times that it's happened, There have been anywhere from 2 to as many as 4 candidates stepped up in the community who had an interest in being involved. So I think it is an issue that the community is passionate about. There are lots of people talking about it. They've asked for it. Whether or not it's legal or not, we'll find out. And then we can make some decisions as a board and go forward.
And I say we make the statement that everybody should become more involved in our public schools.
Absolutely,
So that then
absolutely.
they are engaged and want to take a role such as this.
Board members, I would like to say, I think we got, in my opinion, we have enough information to make a decision as to whether or not we want term limits or not, or a vote. But my question is, I guess to all the board members up here is, you know, we've been kicking this down the road for several school board meetings. And, you know, the issue is, well, the big question is for me, why do we want term limits? There must be a reason why we want term limits. And I think we all have our different opinions or our different ideas of what we think term limits should be for a board member and or why. But we have to ask ourselves, why do we want term limits? Because we've been discussing it for a while now. So you have to ask yourself, you know, I was talking with my brother who's the CEO of a bank down in Georgia, and he works in the fraud department. And so we were talking about the different ways on how people are trying to fraud on credit cards, et cetera. Even though they put different mechanisms in place, there's always a new mechanism that comes and fraud happens. So I use this analogy to say term limits is only a mechanism. So you have to ask yourself, what are you really trying to achieve with term limits? Because it can be circumvented. Now for me, originally I said, yeah, I would be okay with the idea of term limits. But I say this, I said it because of accountability. It brings about accountability, in my opinion. I'm not the term limit brings about accountability. I mean, I want accountability, so you would use term limits as a mechanism. But would that be really a correct mechanism to have accountability? When you think about accountability, you know, when I think back on the last year Super Bowl champions, the New England Patriots, they won Coach Bill Belichick won the 5th Super Bowl, set a record. There's
Alabama too.
yeah. There's Tom Brady after the game. You know, what is Bill's secret? And he simply said he holds everybody accountable. Simple as that. In every organization, confusion starts at the top and trickles down to the bottom. So we as a board have to play at a high level. We have to act and govern at a high level because we dictate the policies that trickle down. And so we have to hold ourselves accountable. Each board member got to look the other board member in the eyes and hold them accountable. I mean, to me, that would be the reason why I guess you would say, should we have term limits or not have term limits? Accountability, and it starts with us at the board level. I'm okay with not having term limits or not. I don't think term limits will do anything, to be real honest with you. So, I mean, that's just my overall opinion when you do the deep dive to try to figure out why do you want term limits? What are we really trying to achieve with term limits? Will anything be solved with term limits? I can't accurately say yes or no. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. Ms. Klein?
I was just going to reference a book that the board received at North Texas Association of School Board Training on improving school board effectiveness. And there's a part in here, and it kind of uses a word that's a little confusing, but it talks about board stability. Leads to stability on focusing on the goals of the district. And that would be my only perspective, is that a lot of chaos doesn't allow the board to focus on the business that we should be focusing on. So, but changes doesn't have to be chaos. It has not been. But, you know, it's just we want to have a superintendent for more than 2 years. It's kind of like football coaches. What? Well, then maybe you get rid of them, but at least the board is focused on that.
Okay, thank you.
So we can agree that we're glad Jerry Jones isn't in charge here.
Well, I don't know what his level of control is he's got.
Okay, Mr.
I think as it is an action item, we probably ought to have a motion to table this item to a further agenda, if that is an appropriate way to respond to this.
I don't know that we need to make a motion on it. I think if it's tabled, it's just tabled.
Okay.
I mean, we'll bring it back up when necessary.
I do want to make a comment. I want to thank Randy for taking the initiative to reach out to a representative to go ahead and present this to get an opinion from the Attorney General. We've got a lot of conflicting information, and that's obvious, and getting some direction from the Attorney General, I think, would be very helpful, not just to me, but to everyone here on the board when we make a decision when that time comes. And I am in favor with tabling it for now until we get a response from the Attorney General. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Consider it tabled. We don't need a motion, it's just tabled. So that'll move us, will be no action on it. So therefore, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 8, consider approval of minutes of Board of Trustees pre-meeting briefing held December 7th, 2017. Board members, this item is marked for action. Do I have a motion regarding this item? Have a motion, Mr. Shackman.
Mr. Matthews, I would move that we accept the minutes of the meeting as presented.
Have a motion, Mr. Shackman. Do I have a second? Have a second, Ms. Rabachi. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Our next agenda item is number 9, consider approval of District's Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, for those of you who like those things, for the period ending August 31st, 2017. Dr. Burns, will administration make a presentation on this item?
Yes, we'd like to give a brief update and report. I'm going to turn it over to our CFO, Scott Roderick.
Thank you very much. We have completed the audit of our 16-17 fiscal year. We've placed a copy of the CAFR at your spot. 2016-17 was the first year of the TRE. Kind of a recap during that year, that helped us provide a compensation adjustment for all our staff. And as well, we were able to make investments in our technology initiatives. For 16-17 fiscal year, we ended with a positive fund balance. And we also feel that we have an adequate fund balance going forward for future years. The district received an unmodified opinion. What that means is that's the highest opinion that you can receive from an outside for our external auditors. We also did not receive any findings, any things that they felt were wrong with our financials, so that's always a positive. We met with our audit committee earlier today to go over the report in more detail, and we were very happy with how 16-17 ended. I also want to say a huge thanks to the staff that worked so hard to put this document together. I just want to say thank you to all our staff members. Thank you very much.
Mr. Fleming.
I'd like to thank the staff for all the tireless work that goes into putting this thing together. It started 2009 when I first came onto the board, and I watched how Mark Hyde would get the process and bring the auditors on board and get me up to speed as a school board member to understand the process. I think we ought to be very thankful that we have a sound CFO of the district. And thank you guys for your time and your talents for putting this thing together. And of course, we got a unqualified modified opinion, which I don't think we've gotten anything else since I've been here. So I think that speaks volumes to the financial staff.
Mr. Klein.
Mr. Matthews, you appointed the audit committee, but I want to commend the two new board members, Tara and Candace, for their service on the audit committee and their diligent participation and review.
I second that.
Amen.
By the way. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, is there a motion?
Tara was going to say something.
Oh. Tara?
Everybody already said the same thing that I was going to say, which was the effort that the staff puts into this. And, you know, I've sat in these meetings for several years in the audience and watched the presentation on our financials and the data involved, and it's overwhelming. And so it's very impressive that the staff comes together and puts together a award-winning report, multi-year award-winning report. So I offer my thanks.
That was pretty good there.
Ms. Klein? Oh,
Did Ms. Valenzuela
Ms.
want to say
Valenzuela?
something?
I wanted to second how wonderful it is, actually. I highly recommend it. It's a great beach read. As far as comprehensive financial reports go, it is so clear, and you add so much to it that gives it contextualizes everything, right? In a way that I think a lot more people can access it and understand it. And I've, as a new board member, have appreciated that clarity considerably.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
So I would be happy to make a recommendation from the audit committee recommending approval of the district's comprehensive annual financial report.
Okay, I have a motion in the form of a recommendation from the audit committee made by Ms. Klein. And that recommendation does not require a second. So, board members, is there any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion is unanimous. Our next agenda item is number 10, consider Carrollton-Farmers Branch Independent School District tracking STAR and end-of-course exam data disaggregated for both poverty and ethnicity, and retaining that data for no fewer than 10 years. Ms. Valenzuela, you requested this item to be placed on the agenda of tonight's meeting. Will you please start the discussion?
Thank you very much, President Matthews. So, I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, it would be of this quote from W. Edward Deming. He's actually a statistical pioneer. He actually came up with some methods we still use in today's census. He said, "In God we trust, all others must bring data." I want to use that as a guiding principle in everything I do, but particularly with my work on the board. Personally, as a woman of color, I can tell you that so much of our experiences in education or in work, it's a collection of anecdotes. Anecdotes where we might have felt that maybe we were passed over for one thing or another, or maybe we had inequitable treatment as students. It's a collection of anecdotes, and it's not something that's readily transferable. So when you try to discuss the impact this certain methods might have on kids, you're going to have to refer to data. So one of the things I wanted to do was I noticed that there was an achievement gap between ethnicities of students. Okay, this is data that we typically have available to us, right? We have it disaggregated for ethnicity, and that's all income levels, all in one pot, right? And then we have it disaggregated for, and then I use the word disaggregated, I mean it's separated in subgroups, it's separated in groups. We have it disaggregated for being impoverished, right? Being below the poverty line. But we don't have any way to see how we're doing within a particular subgroup. So for instance, I couldn't tell you the breakdown of the impoverished children. Okay. And so when I was told that, when I mentioned that there was this achievement gap here, it was kind of shrugged off as being, well, you know, there's a disproportionate number of African Americans that are poor. And so that's why there's an achievement gap. So it's just income. And I said, okay, I would like to trust that, but I would also like to see data. And so I had the privilege of sitting down with Patricia Parker and asking her a little bit about this. And through some considerable work, she was actually only able to give me, well, she was able to break this down for me, but she was only able to go back 3 years. And that's because the TEA doesn't necessarily keep the raw numbers. So my aim here isn't to do anything huge. We're not overhauling the school district or initiating new programs. In fact, that's not in my purview. The only thing that's in my purview is to look for metrics of accountability, right? And so what I want is to just retain data. I want to know how the students in our economically disadvantaged students are doing, broken down by ethnicity, to see if there is any disparity in the way that we treat our kids, okay? And by disparity, I don't mean that teachers are necessarily doing something wrong. I think the best way I could think of it is you have 3 cars. One of them needs an oil change. One of them needs more radiator fluid. One of them needs more gas. You give all of them gas. You've managed to solve the problem for one vehicle, but the other 2 vehicles, even though they could benefit from gas, still have those existing issues. Sometimes a different approach is something that we need to do. It doesn't necessarily need to be anything major. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with the person who's approaching the student. We just need to have data to make sure that we're on track. I found that CFB is very much on point with reading, with research-based practices, and this is just another tool I'd like to add to your tool belt. I know that there's a lot that's impossible without adequate funding, and that's something that I'm aware of every single day. And the school district does a lot with what we have available to us. So in the spirit of our growth mindset, I would like to push this as a way of helping to direct the district to greater equity.
Thank you, Ms. Downflow.
And let me talk a little bit about the numbers up there. I'm sorry about that. So typically the achievement gap is measured by how white students are doing versus how Hispanic students and African American students are doing. On the top, you're just looking at the overall achievement gap, and that's the data that we have readily available to us. Okay, that's something that you can easily look up about our district. On the bottom, though, was the thing that took extra work, right? So you'll notice in 2014, 2015 for mathematics, for instance, Hispanic students, white students were almost on par with African American students, and Hispanic students were a bit higher. Moving into 2015, 2016, you start to see the gap develop a little bit more, or it becomes a little bit more stark. African American students are trailing white students by 18%, Hispanics are trailing by 4%. And then in the following year, African American students are now trailing white students by 20%, and Hispanic students have increased slightly by 5%. Looking over at reading, again, this is what's readily available to us, but if we look at the economically disadvantaged kids, you see we start off with a 10-point difference between black and white students and a 7-point difference between white and Hispanic students, and it increases, right? So black students now are 18 points lower in 2015, 2016. Hispanic students dropped down 9. And then finally, in 2016, 2017, we are at 18. So at least we're holding steady. And we're holding steady for Hispanic students at 9 again. Okay. So board members, I would love to have some discussion about this.
I just, Ms. Klein, I'm sorry.
I had a question about the label economically disadvantaged. I interpreted that to probably be free and reduced lunch or free or reduced. I wasn't sure where that term, where you got the data.
Yes.
So
That's
it's
the free and
or
reduced.
lunch?
Yes, free or.
And then, in my experience, in my life, is if you track something, you're much more conscious of it. So I think that tracking this is helpful. And what I also do wonder is what role does mobility play? But I don't want to start tracking 1,000 things.
And mobility plays a great deal into all of this. Of course, I would have to have more data about that, but
Yeah.
I'm going a little bit on the assumption that if you're equally economically disadvantaged, you're going to also have that the income stability that leads to increased mobility. And so that's why I feel like it's a little bit more of a reliable indicator.
And I found this to be very interesting, and I talked to one engineering friend that was saying, and he's Hispanic, is it causal or is it coincidental? You know, what is making this happen? And I thought that was a curious question. And then I was talking to another gentleman today, another engineer, and he said, I lived in Section 8 housing for 13 years until I got a full ride to college, and I've never gone back, you know. And I said, did you move? And he said, no, I lived in the same place for 13 years. And I think because I did a volunteer program, Learning for Life, in schools for second graders for a year, and I was shocked at the mobility in the second grade classroom, and the coming and going of the kids makes it much harder to make an impact on them. Thank you.
Mr. Matthews,
Yes,
if we
Dr.
can just
Martin.
kind of make some administrative comments. You know, you heard earlier in Mr. Atchison's deal about being a geek. This district is data geeks, okay? We look at data every which way you can. And the great thing about data is it tells you a lot of information. It doesn't always tell you what to do real time right now, right? And that's what we do every day when we look at students and we collect it real time right now to make decisions. It does give us trends, and we look at trends, but as Ms. Klein pointed out, what you also have to understand about data is there are a lot of variables. And so is it good to look at it? Absolutely. But it's hard to make assumptions without factoring in many variables, and mobility is a huge variable. And we know that. The more stable the home life, the more stable they are, the more years they're in our school district, they do better. So we love to keep data, we love to track it, but I think it's important to understand that data is not going to give us the solution as much as it identifies where we are. So that's my kind of big picture comments from the superintendent level, but the people that really work with it all the time is in our ed services, so I'd like Dr. Warnock to weigh in.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. So I really appreciate Ms. Valenzuela's passion in bringing this purview of looking at the data. And our team worked, so thank you to Ms. Parker and her team. The way that the state gives us the data is disaggregated or broken into groups, as Ms. Valenzuela mentioned, by our ethnicity and by poverty, but it's not broken down by poverty and ethnicity. There exists absolutely an achievement gap in this country, in our state, in our district. It's unconscionable. It is, unforgivable, and it's something that every educator that we have the privilege to work with every day is working to solve. There are factors that contribute to that are school level factors. We know education is the great equalizer. We believe that's why we're invested in what we do. And we want the opportunity for every child to have access to the American dream. That's going to come through education. Breaking down the data in this way, we're pleased to do that if it's the board's direction. It doesn't give us information that we don't already know from the data that we receive from the state without staff time going to that. I really appreciated the analogy about the car, because that's what we have to be spending our staff times on, is the real in-the-moment data that we get through MAP, through our interim assessments. Our staff, our data team to be at campuses helping principals and teachers understand the reading level data, the MAP data, the in-the-moment formative data around those children's trajectory to change the trajectory, to see, is it, the gas or the oil change that the child needs. We look at many measures to determine equity. And I think that the STAR test is one test on one day that's given to children. And if we looked back 10 years, we would have seen a closing of the gap, of the achievement gap under tax. That gap was narrowing, narrowing, narrowing. We switched to a new test. That gap is widening. I think the principals in the audience are nodding their heads. We have children that are passing a grade level achievement marker on the PSAT that are struggling to meet that on the state test. And there's some questions about test bias. And I would be hesitant in us putting all of our faith in that one metric. Some of the other metrics that we look at around equity that we study extensively are our disaggregated data of students in advanced course placement. What students by ethnicity, by poverty have access to advanced courses, advanced placement, pre-AP. What is our college testing rate? We're extending TSI testing to all students as a measure to drive equity. And we believe that our performance in that is really measurements that we would use to determine true equity in our system, and our graduation rate, which we have tracked over time, and we have made significant closures in the achievement gap. In fact, in this past year, our four-year graduation rate for African American students exceeded that of our white students. So I think that we want to look at that as really the compendium of all metrics in our system, and are happy to further disaggregate that, but to really get into the equity piece for all of those measurements would require additional staff time that, again, we want to be focused on what do we do in the here and now to make a difference for every child. It's our moral obligation, our ethical obligation, and it's also reflected in our accountability system that we have growth for every single child every year, regardless of their ethnicity, level of income, the language spoken in the home. And the way we do that is by sitting down and walking through, and we have procedures in place 3 times a year where students are discussed by their teachers, child by child, what their current placement is, what their intervention needs are, because we believe that for every child, we have to have growth. So as I said, we are pleased to disaggregate data in any way, but concerned about the investment of staff time to really, truly look at equity measures. And we don't want to overweight one measure, the STAR test. When it's a one day, a snapshot in the life of kids, we have a lot of other measures that give us more information about the equity in our programs. And I want to say that that is the utmost priority for us. It is what keeps all of these people and the people here awake at night trying to figure out how we close the gaps. So that would be our perspective and consideration for the board.
Mr. Ramos.
Nancy brought up a good question, is this a causal or is it coincidental? And I know as a district, we keep a lot of metrics on a lot of different statistics. And 3 years, you really don't know. I don't see what the harm is, and I understand that we have limited staff and it's going to require some additional work. But I think if it is causal, then I think that's when we start to look at it and we can identify the problem. And I agree that there may not be a solution, but the first step in trying to figure out a solution is identifying a problem. Okay? And I think it goes in line with what our motto is of high achievement for each student, to try to figure out if there is an issue and if it is causal.
I appreciate Ms. Valenzuela for bringing this to our attention. I also appreciate Ms. Warnock, Dr. Warnock, I'll get used to saying that soon. reminding us that there are a lot of metrics. Data is super important to us, and as a board, I think we're growing in our understanding of the importance of it and how we need to be looking at it. I also want to encourage us to, as we look at longitudinal data, to, as a board, step up to the plate. You know, Mr. Fleming was talking a little bit ago about accountability. We've got to be accountable to make sure that the resources of this district are being targeted in ways that are making a meaningful difference. And so as we look at trend lines, one of the things that scares me is I look at this and I realize it's a limited snapshot and we can't overblow the one section of stuff, but I don't see trend lines going up. And as we were doing things like superintendent evaluation and looking at other information throughout the district, trend lines in our district don't seem to be moving upward in reading, math, and a lot of these different metrics from SAT to MAP tests to ACT and on. Some are up, some are down, some are flat, but the general trends are largely flat. And so I think it behooves us as a board to say, how do we work with our staff to make sure that our resources are targeting? Do we need more tutors and less PR? Do we need more, this program or that program? Do we need more specialists and fewer administrators? Do we need fewer teachers here and more teachers there? I'm not suggesting anything. I am simply saying I think we've got to take a look and say, how do we get the bang for the buck that's necessary so that we are really making it possible for every student to achieve? Because I believe every staff member in this district and every member of this board wants that. So board, my challenge to us is let's continue to work with data and with staff and make sure that we start seeing these trends and asking the hard questions to say, how can we grow in them?
I would like to speak to that just briefly, if I may, Dr. Burns. We haven't had a year since 2012 that was an apples to apples comparison in terms of our state accountability. So we have had in each year, a new student group has been added, has counted in a way they hadn't before. Special education tests have been changed to where they really are not about meeting the needs of students where they are academically, and that is some rapid changes that we're adjusting to as a staff. And additionally, the cut scores have increased each year, so students are required each year to get a additional number of items correct to have the same passing score as students did the previous year. So all of those factors are, have to be included and considered here. So it's, we absolutely are dedicating every thought, energy, how we can improve. We want all of those trend lines to be skyrocketing. But we also have to be able to operate in a system that's consistent each year, that doesn't change, and a system where the educators know what the rules of the game are prior to the start of the year. We won't find out how this year, the year we are currently sitting in for our accountability, is going to be measured until after the students take the test. That's unfair. It's unfair to the educators that are working hard every day. We don't have the assessments and tools that we need from the state. We have some things that are coming out we think are going to be helpful, but all of those pieces have to be thought of when we think about the trend lines of this one metric of one test that students take on one day. When we say students are more than test scores, we have to consider that and look at a whole picture of data, which is why we think about our 2020 plan and looking at a wide range of metrics. So I think that's important to bring to the table and remind the public about the really complex underpinnings of the system that are very difficult to understand.
Clearly, the tax and the TOS and the STAR and all of the others, the state of Texas has the most ridiculous system of state testing you can ever find, and it is flat wrong. I appreciate that we as a district are working with MAP assessments. We're working with SAT scores and a lot of other things. So we do want to, and work to continue to build and make sure that we've got trend lines moving the way we want for all students across the board. And if we can get our legislatures to get rid of current state assessments and find some more productive methods, we need to do that.
Well, we have a lot of ideas about that, so if we can make connections, we would be glad to voice.
And diverting some of that assessment money to teacher pay. But that's a different story. And I appreciate that test scores are an imperfect metric. I appreciate that the state of Texas has been shifting the goalpost year after year. But these are the metrics that we're typically presented with in order to inform our decisions, in order to inform the Vision 2020. The types of metrics we're getting are test scores. And so what I would like to see is that in our Vision 2020 that equity is something that we as a board have some knowledge about. I do trust that we have some of the most amazing administrators, and I do trust that you all care about this. But what I don't know is how it's going. And that seems, if I don't say anything, if I don't ask for some metric based on the information you all already give me, I think that would be a big failing as a board member. If you can give me another method for due diligence, I would gladly take it. But in terms of, I mean, you can look at our Vision 2020. There isn't any mention of equity.
As board members, I think that one of our main objectives would be to direct to the administration, well, Dr. Burns, what metrics are important to us as a school board, besides the metrics that they already maintain and keep. I just heard yours, and I've talked about some in the last month or so, but I think there's some key data that we ought to be paying attention to on an annual basis. So I don't think that we've given Dr. Burns the direction as far as what exactly we want to look at. You know, what's going to, I think we all have a passion for different areas for the data, but we want to make sure that we get data that's going to help us try to move the dial when it comes to education.
Ms. Klein?
I think what I heard Ms. Valenzuela ask is, could the staff maybe bring back to us what is something that we could track that wouldn't be 3 more staff people, that would help show us the picture? It's not just maybe graduation rates, but it's how can we tell how we're doing? One of my frustrations with the STAR test is they had a writer that wrote a poem that was in the STAR test, and they asked what the writer meant by the poem. And this woman's like, I didn't mean any of that. You know, so there's a lot of weird stuff going on that I would find frustrating if I were forced to take these tests. And but I would ask, you hear what Ms. Valenzuela is asking and what we see, but it's just for one piece. How do we know how we're doing? You know, is there something you think we could track? That's my question. It's an easy one.
That's a great question, and if I can, just kind of summarize some comments here. You know, I think accountability is a great word. The person you hold accountable is the superintendent. That's the one person you hold accountable. Asking the questions, is that absolutely a part of that. But how to do things, you need to hold the superintendent accountable for what is getting done in terms of results. But I would discourage us from getting into the how piece of that. That's my job and the people that work out here. And so hold me accountable for the results. Tell us the results you want, and we'll continue to get there, and we'll provide the data that you need. The other thing I would say, and as Ms. Klein said, what do we have? We don't have a perfect measure. We introduced ERG 10 years ago when I became the superintendent because we felt like it leveled the playing field. We still do feel like it gives us an accurate measure of how well we're doing in terms of value and growth added. and we continue to be in the top 80% of the highest performing of the 200 largest school districts. That's the data that gives us some sense when you kind of accumulate it all together, how are we doing compared to others with a level playing field? So I would encourage you to continue to use ERG as that scorecard, but we'll be glad to provide any additional data that this board wants to look at, and I think it's a great thing that you asked for the data, absolutely. That is absolutely what you should be doing, is asking for the data. But I kind of want to remind us, because it's a different board than 10 years ago, is we adopted an instrument that we felt like gave us a good indication of how well we were doing with the peers that we compete with when you aggregate and you disaggregate with a common denominator that we know is impacting achievement, which is poverty. So, great discussion. I think that's what effective school boards have. Ms. Klein mentioned that book a while ago. I think if you were looking at that chapter, you'd see exactly what was happening here tonight, that good depth of dialogue that talks about how do we do things, how do we get better, but also knowing back is that you got to hold one person accountable at a board level to go make that happen, and that's the way this district, I believe, has gotten the results it has in the past and will continue to strive to do its best to get those other results. Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Hasn't the legislature decided that we're going to learn how to focus on student data and they're going to teach us how? That was some legislation passed in the last session. So I think the TEA, is this correct, Dr. Burns, is working on how to teach boards how to review data better?
I believe so. I believe TA is having the same kind of angst and consternation. How do you determine, what
So we'll
is
have a
effective?
great big enlightenment sometime soon
Absolutely.
that will help us be.
Next September.
And with good luck, they might look at this, or if they don't, we can still ask you to help us find this data.
The same people that produce the STAR test doesn't help us understand data. Yeah. Oh, well.
Go ahead.
And of course, I also want to talk a little bit about how I don't want to overstep in terms of board governance. I would prefer not to micromanage, but I think that this should be, again, if not this specifically, equity should be something that we account for in our results. And we need a way to see that.
I think you're absolutely correct. But to back you up, I don't think it has something to do with board governance. I think this is what's important, should be important across the country, and important in Texas, and important in CFB. So it's good data. It may not be the end all, but it's a good starting place for us to start looking at and paying attention to. All right. Of course, it doesn't give us any solutions, but it's.
No, and that's, I wasn't looking for a solution to these problems tonight, obviously. But I would be happy to table this if the staff would like to discuss a different approach. I would love that. Yes, okay. So, well, let's
Any
table it.
other discussion, board members?
Table it. You got to hear it again.
Have a recommendation. Is there any other discussion? board members? Having just heard a recommendation from Ms. Valenzuela to table this, anybody opposed to that? Okay, this was marked as a possible action item, but it doesn't have to be an action item if we table it.
Right, and Mr. Matthews, if I can just kind of get clear direction and some clarity around here. We'll go back and we'll look at the data, and we'll try to continue to bring you things that can show closing that gap and how we measure that, we think, more accurately. Again, not everyone on this board has gotten kind of the insight into ERG in the past and how they use some sophisticated tools to level that playing field and also show how you're closing the gap. But we'll bring you back some things for some consideration that you might believe, yeah, that is giving us a good idea about how we're closing the gap and how we're addressing equity. Because that is our goal. I mean, when we said each student, we say all. We said each because the intent The intention was to reduce the achievement gap. And that is everybody's goal. Everybody out there in that audience there works every day to make that happen. It doesn't matter what means the kid comes from or where they come from in a background. They do their very best every day to make sure each student has high achievement. So we will find the best data we can have, our best data out there to give you some sense of how we're doing.
Thank you.
Dr. Warnock, do you want to add to that?
No, sir.
Mr. Ramos?
Question, are we tabling this indefinitely, or are we tabling until the next meeting, because the next meeting isn't that far away?
We're tabling it indefinitely.
We will do our diligence to bring it back as soon as possible. As you know, we have 2 meetings this year. We do one in the fall, in September, we talk about how we've done, and then we do one in April to talk about what our metrics are that we want to shoot for and strive for. So we'll have some data coming up at our April work study when we start talking about how we want to address the targets in our Vision 2020 based on the information we have. Are we on target? Are we off target? What do we need to do? That's the very, I guess, appropriate time, and the timing of that is to talk about what metrics are we studying, what metrics do we want to continue to study. So giving us a little freedom of that time will help us get there, not having a definitive time to bring it back, but it will be soon. It won't be 10 years from now. It'll be quick.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Burns. Thank you, Ms. Valenzuela. I so much appreciate your passion. I really do. I've told you that before. That brings us to our next agenda item, a report from administration about the District of Innovation. Dr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews, and members of the board. As you know, there's a process to the District of Innovation status that the state allows you to do, and we continue to follow those steps in that process. That's the direction that we got, but there are a few more other things that we need to do, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Warnock for the next steps in the process.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. Tonight, we are bringing a report to the Board of Trustees on our District of Innovation Plan. We broached this conversation with the board at our work study in November. We came back and discussed it in December, and the board appointed a committee at that time. So we want to give you an update on where we are in the process at this time. The District of Innovation was legislation that passed, not this past legislative session, but the one previously, to allow school districts to seek waiver from certain provisions of the education code that would allow districts to operate with the same freedoms that charter schools have. So really in this plan, it's a place for us to seek certain laws and regulations that are part of that education code that we wish to exempt ourselves from. There's very specific guidance about what we can do under a District of Innovation plan and what we cannot do. There are between 1,000 and 1,100 school districts in the state of Texas, and over 650 roughly have pursued becoming districts of innovation, largely to be able to alter their school's start date and to have more local control over the calendar. So we see here what we can do, what we cannot do, and we've shared that with the board in previous meetings. So we began our discussion in early November with our District Improvement Council, and then we had that board work study in November. At our December meeting, the board followed the next steps in the process to become a District of Innovation by adopting a resolution, holding a public hearing, and then determining a committee to consider the District of Innovation. The committee met. We reviewed many District of Innovation plans from districts in our region. And the committee developed a plan with request to exempt from certain statutes of the Education Code. And the board has a copy of that. That plan has also been posted on our district website because that has to remain posted for a certain number of days prior to the approval by the Board of Trustees. And so tonight that brings us to the report, and we also have a space for public comment on the innovation plan. And then at the February board meeting is when we'll ask the board to consider adoption of the innovation plan, and that requires a 2/3 vote of the Board of Trustees. Our District of Innovation Plan for CFB ISD includes 3 different components. First is flexibility in the school start date. This was readily received by the committee. What this would allow us to do is to move the school start date earlier in the year rather than that 4th Monday in August. This would allow for a balance of days in the semester. We have a short fall semester, and then our spring semester is long. For courses that are semester courses, there's some challenge in that. We lose more days in the fall for exams, et cetera. So having that balance of days would be important there. Also, our neighboring districts are doing this. They're moving their school start dates up usually by about 2 weeks. And that means students have 2 weeks more to prepare for all of the assessments that we're talking about. Students who are in school 2 weeks earlier have 2 weeks ahead of our CFB students to be preparing for SAT, ACT, AP exams, STAR, fine arts performances. So all of those things, we feel like it would be to benefit to our students. That means we would end earlier. We have a calendar right now where our students go have a 4-day weekend for Memorial Day, then come back and take exams. So we think it would be more beneficial to the students' learning and to families to be able to end the calendar and then have our break. So that's the first. We're requesting the exemption in the school start date. The second exemption that we're looking at is the flexibility in minutes for pre-K. The state shifted from having a number of days required for students to a certain number of minutes that were required for students. And in doing that, students in pre-K were required to attend for 210 minutes a day. Our previous schedule had pre-K students attending for 180 minutes a day because we're required for our teachers to have a 45-minute conference period and a 30-minute duty-free lunch. So we had a pre-K session in the morning, then there's a break in the day for students to be transported home, the next group of students to be transported to school. Teachers have lunch and conference, and then a second session of pre-K in the afternoon. So the state said we're going to have to add these minutes to our pre-K day, and what that did was force us to think about how would we provide lunch, conference period for our teachers, and then also keep the minutes for pre-K. The schedule that we worked out involved hiring many additional staff to be able to provide coverage. If you've never served lunch to 100 4-year-olds, you haven't lived. So additional coverage and support at lunch, additional aid positions, and actually reduce the minutes of instruction that students were going to be receiving because we then were getting into providing lunch and more breaks, et cetera. So for us to maximize the minutes of instruction and to have be efficient with our resources, we would like to retain the same minutes of pre-K. The state granted waivers for districts because across the state, districts expressed concerns about this as they started working through the logistics. But in case that waiver doesn't continue, our innovation plan would allow us to be in compliance. It would also allow us to maximize the instructional minutes for our pre-K students, and it would also allow us to maintain our funding for pre-K students because we will meet the minute requirement for the year. So that's important. We want to continue to push full-day pre-K for every child, universal full-day pre-K, and we're excited to be expanding our pilot program this year from full-day pre-K to some additional sites, and then also expanding our pay-for program for students that don't qualify for pre-K based on the guidelines of the state. The third exemption that we would like to seek is for teacher certification in certain areas. We have certain CTE fields. We have a desire to expand the programming that we offer to students in programs such as, for example, welding. And we might struggle to find a teacher of welding who's gone through a traditional teacher certification program, but we might have an expert welder who could come and teach our students that craft that would meet certain professional requirements and obligations that would be set up with our Personnel Services Department for that CTE field. We also would like to consider expanding in the future some world language offerings. We have over 1 billion people in this world that speak Chinese. We think that having students have access to the languages of the 21st century will be important. It's very difficult to find highly qualified certified teachers in languages like Chinese and Arabic, which are languages we think may be of interest to offer in the future. We have partnerships with some universities and then also with some government agencies that are doing a lot of grant funding that we may be able to find teachers in these languages that are already teaching at community colleges or in other fields but don't have traditional certification, that we would have certain requirements drafted by our personnel services. Finally, the expansion of our fine arts academies at our elementary school. Dance is a secondary certification. We're going to be adding dance programming at some of our elementary schools, and we would like to hire dance certified teachers with a secondary certification to be able to serve in the elementary schools and to apply that certification there. I want the board to know that the committee, the District of Innovation Committee that you appointed, almost everybody was able to attend, and they unanimously recommended this plan. And the District Improvement Council, with a majority quorum there, voted unanimously to make the recommendation of this plan to the Board of Trustees. We believe there's a high degree of support. Additionally, we've prepared 3 different calendars to bring to the board in February for your consideration. 2 calendars that are based on the innovation plan, 1 calendar that's based on a traditional calendar, so if the board would have some flexibility and options there. Overwhelmingly, 90% of our respondents have chosen one of the innovation calendars. And we've had over 3,000 respondents in the survey that's gone out to parents and community. So we're taking that as a community approval that this is a direction that the community would want to go. So we're happy to answer any questions that you may have, and then we would open for a period of public comment and then come back to you in February to ask for you to consider a vote, and at that time would notify the commissioner of our plan, and that would be the final steps in our process. So that concludes our report. We're pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Warnock. Board members, have any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming.
Ms. Warnock, regarding the school start date, participating in the District of Innovation will allow us to start earlier?
Yes, sir.
Is that just because of this particular program? Am I correct?
Yes, sir. So the Education Code requires a start on the 4th Monday in August or after, and we would be able to exempt ourselves from that part of the code by pursuing the innovation plan.
Well, the reason why I asked that question, because I was in Austin the last legislature, and I know there was a big, so it happened I was at the Capitol, and it was a big tourism travel day, and their main objective was to get the school start date later in the summer, because they were saying that it cuts into the travel and tourism dollars. I guess, so my question is will the state go back and challenge this if a number of school districts, I guess they could, if a number of school districts start participating in the District of Innovation?
Sure. So over half of the school districts in Texas now have joined in as a District of Innovation, and most to have flexibility and local control over that school start date. We did not pursue a District of Innovation earlier because of concerns that in this last legislative session that there might be additional legislation passed to revoke the District of Innovation. Once we went through that session, and there were proposals, and you're so right about the tourism lobby speaking out against this. But those bills did not make it out of committee to end District of Innovation, so that was when we decided to pursue it. Should legislation in the next session come back, then we, of course, would adjust and accordingly.
Okay. I got one more question. It's regarding the CTE, not having certified teachers. What specifically are we talking about regarding not having certified teachers? Is there particular courses, classes?
I can give you two examples, and we would set up our qualifications for that with our personnel services. And there are some exemptions in the code for teachers who have a certain amount of professional experience. The teachers that would be hired would also be required to be appraised under our system, complete professional development, and have additional classes in pedagogy and content. Right now, the first example that comes to mind is welding. That's an interest that we would want to look to expand. It's very difficult to find a welding teacher who's traditionally certified. The second that we can think about that comes to mind, we had an excellent candidate for a CTE position in ag mechanics this past year, and he didn't have the proper certification, even though he had the robust trade and industry knowledge and had been doing substitute work in our district and was really connected with our students. So this kind of flexibility would allow us to look at situations like that and make a decision that would be in the best interest of building the career knowledge of our students.
Dr. Warnock, I think what he was asking is to be a certified teacher, doesn't it require a bachelor's degree plus how many hours, or can you elaborate on that?
To become a certified teacher, well, there's several different pathways to certification. But yeah, a certified teacher typically
Either an
always
education
has a
major.
bachelor's degree in either a content field, and then they do a post-bac experience to get their certification. Yeah, or we have staff that have bachelor's degrees with a certain number of college hours in their content field that then take an exam after an alternative certification program, but have not had training in pedagogy. So we would be looking at work experience as the substitute for some of those requirements.
So they may not have a bachelor's degree or.
Right. And that would be, our preference would be a bachelor's degree, but we would be looking at a rubric to determine that field experience and then the certification degree experience.
I would think CTE courses, that would be fine, but I'm not an educator, so.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and not to go back too far in the past, but since I've been in that past, there have been times that the state did allow non-degree people to teach.
Right.
But it was a very high demand field where you couldn't find anybody certified or degree per se. But the industry experience is what did that. Auto mechanics is the one that comes to mind when we started doing that at Turner back 30 years ago. But that's rare nowadays that you would not have at least a baccalaureate or a bachelor's degree. But the certification is hard because in many ways there's not even a certification program to get certified to teach somebody.
Another example that comes to mind that sometimes is difficult for us to staff is our Academy of Biomedical Professions. We've had doctors or nurses that want to come and teach in a program but don't have a teacher certification. But we would love to have a doctor leading our clinical rotations in our biomedical program. So those are
They could probably get one in a week or so if they need it.
yeah, rare exceptions.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Mr. Shackman?
Question about the first day of instruction. So we're targeting a move to move the date out, and we're moving the end date. Are they being moved equally?
Yes, sir.
So we're not changing the number of, I know they count in minutes, but I think our staff counts it in days.
Right.
So that's not looking at being changed, and we're not
That is correct. And we believe that in the best educational interest of the student, moving that start date up 2 weeks would be really the best for equalization and to be able to end before Memorial Day, all of those factors. But we are going to do that in a process over time so that the summer is not compressed by 2 weeks this year. So a week this year, then we would look to bring a recommendation to you the following year to move up an additional week.
Any other comments or questions, board members?
And
Thank you, Dr. Warnock.
I'm so sorry, President Matthews, if I could have a second.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And just, again, this needs clarifying again. Once you pick certain options in District of Innovation, can you decide without talking to us that you'd prefer to pick something else?
Thank you for asking that question. No, we cannot. So the way that the process would work, should we wish to amend the plan, there's 2 ways that could happen. The District Improvement Council could petition by a majority to proceed with an amendment of the plan, or the Board of Trustees would adopt a resolution similar, this exact process we've just run, adopt a resolution, appoint a committee to revise or amend, and then that committee would meet. It would have to be approved by the District Improvement Council and then brought back to you again for approval. So the same process we've done originally would have to be repeated for any amendment or revision going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Warnock.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Warnock. Our next agenda item is a report from administration about facility projects. Dr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews and members of the board. As you know, we've been talking about facilities all year long. I'm sorry. Public comment on that one for the report? I don't.
My apologies, it's just the report tonight. We did public
The next
comment
time we
last
will.
time, and we'll have public comment in February.
Yeah. Tonight was just information, no action, so the other won't come next time, so. Facilities, okay. We've been talking about them for, most of the year and doing a lot of things with, evaluating and assessing where we are. We still believe that coming to school is an important part of education. You can't do everything virtually, right? And so our buildings are important to that educational process. So, Mr. Finley, are you ready to talk to us a little bit about facilities?
I am, but I think Ms. Tillman has a few
Ms.
comments.
Tillman, you have some comments first?
Yes. Over the course of the next 24 months, we're very excited that we're going to be moving towards closure with our 2003 bond resources as well as our TIF projects. Our 2003 bonds have gone well beyond the original plan, and Ms. Brown may be able to add that to her record list. I'm not aware of a bond issue that's gone that long. The reason we have bond funds left right now is because the board did take action. We amended our TIF agreement. We utilized bonds funds to complete the Ranch View project, which was an original project plan for bond funds. It met all the criteria to be used for TIF funds. So when we made that move, that did allow some available resources to do some additional projects within the district. We have additional TIF funds left because the TIF zone grew much quicker than anticipated and has a larger tax value. And also our enrollment did not grow as anticipated, and so the projects initially planned were not needed based upon enrollment. So those have these two unique features in both of our resources that are currently available. Over the last 6 months, we've been gathering data to work towards a plan to utilize these available resources. This evening, Mr. Finley is going to share with you the projects we've been working on that have come out of various pieces of data that we'll share with you or has been shared with you in the past. And these priorities have been identified by the board, our community, and our staff members. So we're excited to share some direction that we're headed in the future. Mr. Finley.
Thank you, Ms. Tillman. Dr. Burns, President Matthew, board members. I do appreciate the chance to continue this discussion of innovation and student engagement with the presentation of our facility priorities and projects, as Ms. Tillman mentioned. The presentation will focus on 5 projects that you see here on this slide. These projects have been prioritized based on multiple indicators, including educational needs, available resources, existing facility conditions, data from various reports that the board has been privy to, updated branding needs, competition from charter schools, and finally alignment with our district's 2020 vision plan. To begin the conversation, we're going to look first at facility consolidation and concepts that surround that. The first project to be considered is a consolidation of the McLaughlin-Strickland campus to the Strickland campus by itself. In doing so, there's a number of benefits that the district and the campus can realize. First is the educational benefit. With this consolidation, there would be greater collaboration between primary and intermediate teachers, and this is vital to both student growth and teacher relationships. Also, with all grade levels housed in one facility, communication can obviously be improved, and this communication is vital and critical for those transition years, particularly between the 2nd and 3rd grade. This consolidation would also bring a number of operational efficiency improvements, such as eliminating staff redundancies, efficient use of space, reduction of utilities, and other operating cost reductions. Additionally, this priority considered data from the facility assessment, where the McLaughlin facility condition score was a 67 as compared to the score of Strickland of 92, which incidentally was one of our highest scores. The first step of this consolidation effort would merge McLaughlin into Strickland for the start of the school year 2018. This move will put the campus close to its maximum capacity. In addition, the district will also be discussing options and timing for the demolition of the McLaughlin facility and the potential future uses of the site upon which it sits. Left out one piece here. To continue with this idea of facility consolidations, we are now looking at relocating the special education services from the Huey building, where it currently exists, to the Educational Service Center, Building C. We were at the point where we were needing to invest additional dollars to upgrade the special education's current home at Huey. But we began looking at current facility utilization. It became a much better option and made better sense to relocate this department to one of our existing underutilized facilities, which is the Education Service Center Building C. In addition, this move to a central location would allow the special education department to share resources with the entire educational service team. This relocation will include minor renovations, mechanical improvements, and new finishes such as carpet and paint. This work and relocation effort will be completed over the summer and be ready prior to the start of school again in 2018. Our next look is at the 2 campus expansion projects.
What would happen to the Marie
Oh, I'm
Huey
sorry.
building?
That's another facility that we would be looking at either potentially selling. We have some time, and I think it has some worth in its current location.
Yeah, if I can add to Mr. Finley's comments, board members, you remember that we had talked about the amount of square footage we had in this district compared to students, and that we had quite a bit more square footage than what would be considered even a standard, be quite higher than standard. So in terms of looking at, our objective of improving our operational efficiency, how do we reduce that without losing effectiveness, right? But gaining some cost to them. So those what Mr. Finley identified are 2 things to do that. Then the Huey site becomes something that the board can decide, is that a future site that we may need eventually, so we want to keep it? Or is there something we want to do with it later on if we were offered something on it? But the operational savings is consolidating the services, right? And not putting in more money in a building that we believe is really not worth putting money in. So,
correct.
But to answer your question directly, Ms. Klein, yeah, we've got plans, we just don't know what's best plan yet. So.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. So continuing, we're looking at 2 campus expansion projects for Strickland and Landry elementaries. By expanding these 2 campuses, we would move to step 2 of the consolidation effort at Strickland and support projected and expected growth at both of the campuses. In addition, these projects will also support the programmatic changes and new innovative programs planned at both of these schools, as well as address the needs that have been identified in the facility assessment. At a future meeting, we will be providing the board with architect recommendations, followed by a refined project scope and cost, which will lead us to a recommendation for a construction manager to complete these expansion projects for both of these campuses. The district presently has 2 available funding mechanisms for both projects. For the Strickland project, we can utilize existing bond funds, and for the Landry project, TIF funds are available. We are targeting August 2019 for the completion of both of these projects. The next concept or facility project we'll look at is the new educational and multi-purpose facility. This single project will house the new location for the Network Operating Center in the Technology Department, known as the NOC, as well as a multi-purpose event center. This project will be located at our existing site in Irving, Texas. The NOC relocation to the Irving site was clearly identified as the most feasible option in our technology feasibility study from True North that the board had received. This relocation will accommodate both current and future Operations Center needs while addressing those existing systems that are at end of life. This facility will also include a new multi-purpose event center. This center will include a full kitchen and banquet hall that the entire district can utilize for special events, award ceremonies, and student events. The new multi-purpose facility can be used to house certain student testing services as well, such as advanced placement exams and possibly SAT, ACT, TSI, and ASVAB testing. By centralizing these testing efforts at this site, students can be served in a much more efficient manner and campus disruptions can be minimized. Additionally, the banquet hall can serve as an extension and enhancement to the career and technology course offerings, such as culinary arts, hospitality, hotel, and restaurant management. This project comes with many benefits, as mentioned, including the educational benefits, but the project also has financial benefits, such as a reduction of project costs by building on a site we currently own, the availability of existing TIF funds for the design and construction of the project, additional revenue from the sale of the existing TLC building, and cost savings by moving banquets, catering, and events to a service that can be provided in-house. Again, we'll be coming back to the board with a refined project scope and cost, as well as a recommendation for construction manager. The targeted completion for this facility is also August 2019. Finally, we move to campus improvement projects for elementary campuses. These options are designed to foster and enhance programmatic changes while highlighting the innovative and exciting options available for students in our community. In doing so, we would be addressing the critical issue of charter schools in our district and reminding our parents that CFB is the top and right choice for their students. We want to ensure that once these projects are completed, these campuses will reflect to the community their new direction and exciting programs. And as a reminder, our last bond election was in 2003, and many of the issues that we are currently facing as a district did not exist at that time. Consequently, our actions today need to respond appropriately to our current needs. It is important to note that the new programs planned are scheduled to begin in the fall of 2018, which is the next school year, and this short time frame and available funding will drive the specific project scope and construction time frames. With that in mind, we will be presenting the updated design of these projects at the February board workshop and bring a recommendation for construction managers in March. For all the campuses, 3 options will be presented that build on these common elements listed above. New marquee and entrance signage, new exterior paint and graphics at the school entrances, new interior paint and graphics at the school lobbies and welcome centers, and new interior paint and miscellaneous improvements at the designated areas in the campus that serve as these signature program centers or classrooms. The graphics that follow are all conceptual in nature, and as you all are well aware, the final design for each campus will change to reflect those campuses' specific needs and other factors that are unique to the programs and the campuses. So we begin with signature program option 1, which is what I mentioned, which is the new marquee. This first option we look at shows the marquee design concepts. This option presents a freestanding sign with a manual marquee as shown. By changing or adding this type of signage, a new campus identity is brought to the public that will highlight its innovation and the programs that it houses. For exterior entrance improvements, one of our primary goals, and one that was identified in the facility assessment, was to improve our campus's drive-up appeal or curb appeal. One means to accomplish this would be improvements focused at the campus main entrances. For example, the photos you see here show new paint, pretty simple solution on an existing building element with additional applied graphics, as you can see. So once you enter into the new academies, we want visitors, parents, students, and staff to immediately recognize that there's something different and unique about the campus. In this option, for interior entrance improvements, we propose adding an applied graphic to an existing wall surface, as seen in the illustrations on the left. And then you can see how it may look in a real-world application on those photos to the right. But I'd also like to draw your attention to the graphic on the far right. Included in this option is a lighting system designed to highlight or project images on any surface in the building. The system is called a gobo system and is a fairly inexpensive way to message and direct visitors in an effective and flexible way. The last element to consider under option 1 is improvements to the Signature Academy's designated classroom or center. Under this option, we would consider an applied graphic to the corridor, much like you saw in the earlier option. And this type of graphic would emphasize the program while identifying the space or spaces allocated to the program. In addition, a simple change from a solid door to a glass door can give students and visitors a glimpse into the activities within the center or classroom, and an indication that the space is indeed different and unique. The final component of option 1 would be the painting of an entire wall within the center with a product that's called Idea Paint. This paint, in essence, converts the wall that it's painted on into a full-height erasable marker board. And this is used by both students and teachers, and we have seen this in action. It really engages kids. It gets them out of their seats and up to the walls to do some of their work and collaboration. It's important to note in this option that the specific changes of the campuses at their interior classrooms and centers would be different depending on the programs that they house. For instance, if the program was going to be a fine arts signature academy, this would be a different graphic, but the center itself would be different. It would include things that would be specific to that program, like dance flooring, mirrors, and bars. We now move to option 2, consideration, and this is the option for the freestanding marquee that we saw earlier. This option includes the addition of electronic sign at this marquee. This type of technology will give the campus additional flexibility and efficiency in their specific messaging and marketing. As the graphic depicts, this addition can be accomplished with only a minor change to the option 1, which would actually be replacing the manual marquee with one that is electronic, without having to rebuild or renovate the permanent signage components. The second option for exterior entrance improvements includes the extension or addition of building signage. This photo above shows what the exterior entrance may look like with a building wrap type graphic, and this is in the picture on the left, and new applied signage. This option could also include some custom metal signage, again unique to the program and highlighting what is housed within the campus. For the interior improvements option, number 2, the applied entrance graphic is enhanced with the addition of a 3-dimensional interactive component. These components are designed to reflect the specific academy focus and engage students and visitors alike. This option also includes the extension of the GOBO lighting system throughout the campus, creating pathways to the academy's specific classroom or center. Option 2 for the interior center improvements would focus on the extension of the Idea Paint solution mentioned earlier to as many walls as possible within the specific space. Again, this concept here is to expand engagement opportunities within the program centers. In addition, option 2 could include additional components for specific academies such as lighting, sound equipment, different types of flooring, etc. We now move to option 3. Option 3 for the freestanding building sign and marquee is the utilization of a monumental freestanding letters along with an electronic marquee as shown. Option 3 for the exterior entrance adds or extends components previously mentioned to highlight the building and the program that it houses. In this photo, the extension of the building wrap is seen going around the corner. Additionally, this option may include exterior furnishing, landscaping, and exterior lighting. As stated earlier, this iteration builds upon the options already presented. This allows for phasing of these changes to occur without having to go back, remove, or redo previous improvements. We move now to option 3 for the interior entrance improvements. And this option or concept includes all the components of the previous 2 options with the addition of an interactive flat screen monitor. These interactive monitors provide another engagement opportunity and a dynamic means to highlight academy events and student work. And then finally, option 3 for the interior center improvement includes the components again of options 1 and 2, plus the addition of a window wall. This added transparency allows visual access into these centers and highlights the campus's signature programs again. With this type of access, momentum and excitement can be created when visitors, parents, teachers, and students see these programs in action. This option also shows the addition of new furnishings to add flexibility and specificity to the function of the space. These next 2 slides that I'll present show additional concepts that can be considered for future phases or iterations of the options that have been previously presented. Specifically, the slide on the left shows a building element clad in metal panels instead of paint. Small changes, but it does present a different look. And the photos on the right capture a few ideas of the many options for building signage. This slide contains many of the elements previously presented into one completed project. The makerspace shown could be a signature program, interior classroom or center, and the hall to the right shows the applied graphic concept that was seen in the earlier photos. By including flexible furnishing, lighting, and interactive components in these concepts, student achievement is supported through engagement and excitement. This slide shows a summary of the cost estimates, and these are estimates for the 3 options for each of the 4 design elements of marquee solutions, entrance improvements, interior entrance improvements, and classroom center improvements. Please note that the fine arts additive at the bottom would be included in the cost estimate for those programs at the fine arts campuses, again, because that's a different and unique program to be housed there. As seen throughout the presentation, these projects are presented in concept form and capture a broad range of options to be considered. And as is the case with any construction project or facility improvement, we have budgetary and time constraints that will ultimately inform the final project choices. We also want to make certain that any work completed in the short term can be improved and expanded with additional resources. For these signature program projects, we are targeting completion prior to the start of the 2018 school year. The final project to be presented tonight is enhancements to the entrance of Newman Smith High School as shown. This project is designed to improve the overall appearance and to highlight the high school as a valid choice for parents in the community. This is particularly critical for this campus due to the sale of the property across the street to a charter school system, a system that has a projected enrollment of 888 students with a growth initiative of an additional 888 students. This design concept shows an entry canopy to define and welcome all the visitors and students to the main entrance, while the secondary entrance changes the secondary entrances provide a means to graphically display campus programs and innovations. Landscaping and signage improvements further enhance the campus's drive-up appeal. This construction project can be phased or separated into specific smaller projects that can act independently of each other, such as just doing the main entry shade structure, or doing the secondary entry enhancements, or doing the landscape or exterior signage, or any combination of the three. The cost estimate for the entire Newman Smith High School entrance is shown on this slide. And just to remind the board again, this project can be divided into many ways. It could be singular components or a combination of any of the components. Again, depending on time frame and budgets, which will actually inform what choice we make here. So this moves us to next steps. In order to meet the aggressive timelines that have been shared, we need to move at a very rapid pace. You can see from this slide that we are wanting to release competitive sealed proposals as early as tomorrow. This action will be followed closely by recommendations for architectural services at the February board meeting, a presentation of refined projects at the February board workshop, and recommendations for construction managers at the March board meeting. And we are hoping to see construction very early in the summer months. This does conclude our presentation, and we will open it up to any questions the board may have.
Board members, are there any questions? Ms. Klein?
Budget that is not TIF related on this.
It's out of bond, not
It's-
related to TIF.
Are you asking what we have available? Right now, we have $2 million total. That we'd like to utilize, that's our limitation to include the Strickland addition and all of these adjustments.
And just personally, I feel like some of the improvements are not attractive to me. So I hope that there's some opportunity to have some feedback.
And I appreciate that. There absolutely will be opportunity to have feedback in the design process. Again, I just want to mention that what is presented is concepts alone, and really the important factor is that these are iterations that build upon each other, and that's maybe the takeaway that the board should
And just
take.
examples, but if you look at the middle school in Capel on 121 in Denton Tap area, it looks like a prison. And then if you look at Hebron at the LISD middle school up there, it's ugly. You know, I like where we're going, but I want to make sure that it's attractive. So,
We want to make sure we're going where we want to go.
well, I don't totally trust the school architects to have all the best taste. That's just how I feel.
No offense back there,
Yeah,
Ryan.
but yeah. Point taken.
Ms. Klein?
I didn't know there was anybody in the audience, I wouldn't have said it, but, you know.
And actually one presenting to y'all.
Ms. Klein, while we're here, would you mind just giving an example of what you don't prefer, just out of curiosity?
To me, red is bad.
Right.
So I like the metal cladding, but to me, I would go with maybe a metal color instead of red. What I've always learned is don't put things in red unless you don't like them. And then the other thing is the
I strongly
marquees.
disagree with that, but go
I
ahead.
don't really like the fonts. I thought the message board looked awful. You know, there's things, you know, message boards, you can change the way they operate. There's just ways to make them look better and things. But I did like, as the generations changed, they got better, but the lettering in the message boards was still like, eh. So it looks like something you'd have on a highway construction job. So
That is the least expensive option. They do become more expensive as we progress.
I really like the Newman-Smith plan, really. Anything to go against those folks across the street.
I would also add that for the campuses that we're consolidating and/or moving, that those names would remain the same, so they would not lose their identity as McLaughlin-Strickland. For reporting purposes and everything else, it's one name, so we would maintain that name for the campus as well as Huey. So those names would remain intact.
Just one question. I really like the increased glass features, the glass door, some of the more open, I guess the window walls. I am concerned about safety, however. Is that something that they're accounting for in the design process?
Absolutely. That's going to be a primary concern in any design process we go through, and there are means. Having glass and visibility into schools is becoming a much more common practice, and due to the fact that safety is an issue, there are means to accomplish that with things like shades, quite frankly, that close it off. But those considerations, again, will be part of the discussions that come when we start to refine exactly what's going on in these projects.
Thank you.
That's a good question. That's a good point. Any other questions or comments, Ms. Rabachik?
Thank you. So to confirm, those upgrades on the signage and the marquees, those are only to our schools with a new program or signature program being introduced.
What is presented tonight are changes to those signature programs, but they will inform decisions to be made in a much broader sense for the district. In the facility assessment, this idea of curb appeal and drive up was mentioned more than once, and Ms. Klein mentioned some of the issues that districts have all over the state with this. And so we want to absolutely address that in a much broader sense, but for the purpose of this presentation, we were talking specifically about improvements to the signature program campuses.
Okay. And then I kind of have the same feeling on the look of the font and the message board and stuff, but.
I will write that down.
And then, is our normal delivery method CM at risk?
CMAR, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I couldn't, I don't remember previous discussions. And then the banquet hall and items in Irving, is the intent that facility would be for rent for external customers or for internal customers, or what's the use?
It is really meant to be a service for the district.
Okay.
And we have so many events planned throughout the year. This would be of great benefit as a central location to do that. And again, I don't want to gloss over the whole educational benefits side of that, which I think is very critical to all these discussions. And this idea of expanding our course offerings and our great CTE programs is just another way to engage kids and set the district apart from many of the options that are out there now.
Okay.
And we would handle it like any other facility. We would have a criteria, and, we would have to look at use availability and the cost associated with that size of a facility in terms of cleaning, all the things that go along with using something that large. So it would definitely be factored in, but it would be treated like any other district facility
Okay.
in terms of use.
Ms. Klein?
So what is the proposal that's going out tomorrow, or could go out tomorrow? What does it include?
It just includes, it's a competitive seal proposal for CMAR services. So it is a process in which
But
we.
For what? For the enhanced campuses?
For each
Or
of-
for
for-
the Irving building, or what?
For all of these projects.
So McLaughlin, Strickland, Marie, Huey, everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that wasn't clear.
I'm sorry, not the sped relocation. That is done completely in-house.
And you're looking for a single?
No, we are not.
Okay.
The proposal design where the responders can respond to a single project or a group of projects or all the projects. In the end, it is our decision as a committee to determine what's the best for our district.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Shackman?
To borrow off of Ms. Klein, I could live with red. I'm not so wild about the pre-graffitied walls. But I don't know if this is the time or the place. I'd like to toss out for us to get into the mix and discussion. I, for one, would like to see us move in the direction of potentially naming our brand-new Network Operations Center after our James Good. And I don't know what mechanism we do with that, but I'd like for that to be on the table as we think about.
Yeah, we'll start that. That actually goes out of Communications Department, and we've already been talking about that. We have several recommendations that we want to bring forward as we start building these facilities.
Okay.
That we think is very appropriate to honor the service of some of our past board members.
Okay.
So, yeah, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
That is a part of the plan.
Any other questions or comments, board members? Okay, Ms. Klein?
I have a pet peeve.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we don't want to spend water on grass, but what gets me is concrete with wallows of dirt. So my little pet peeve, the drive-up appeal, doesn't have to be grassed and heavily green, but that there not be trip hazards of when you're walking between drive aisles, or, you know, that it look like you might have in my front yard, which is very low standard, but not as low as sometimes I see. So I think that there's some drive-up appeal that is more than just architectural, is my comment.
Absolutely, and if I could, you bring up actually a very good point. This idea of concrete and flat work was actually a component that was brought up more than once in our facility assessment. And when we mentioned that these improvements have a specific purpose, we also keep an eye on this comprehensive facility assessment to inform some of the specific decisions that will go into the refinement of these projects. And as Ms. Klein mentioned, concrete was actually one of those components.
I'm worried about the dirt.
And dirt was one of those components that showed up quite often in our facility assessment.
Board members, do we have any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Finley and Ms. Tillman. Appreciate your work on that. The next agenda item is number 13, closed meeting as authorized under Texas Government Code, including but not limited to Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, real property, 551.074, personnel matters, 551.076, security devices, 551.082, school children / district employees / disciplinary matter or complaint, 551.0821, personally identifiable student information, 551.084, investigation. The board will meet in closed session to deliberate the following matter. Closed meeting is authorized under Texas Government Code, including but not limited to Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, real property, 551.074, personnel matters, 551.076, security devices, 551.082, school children, district employees, disciplinary matter or complaint, 551.0821, personally identifiable student information, 551.084, investigation. Audience members, you are welcome to remain in the boardroom as board members recess and move to room 150, the executive conference room for deliberations. The time is now 10:15. This meeting returned from closed session. The time is now 11:05. Board will move on to the next agenda item, number 14, comments from board members regarding posted agenda items. Board members, do you have any comments you wish to make at this time?
I have one. Need the microphone. Just to offer to the board, how something that has been in progress for a while, the middle school one-to-one, this is related to technology and some of our STEM discussions and technology in the classroom, but I had some feedback from the BBMS kid feedback team, otherwise known as Herbachic Carpool, with some, after they did implementation, immediately coming back. And I just wanted y'all to know that the kids were excited about it. They gave me some great feedback of why did this happen? What about this? Why is this? And I shared that feedback with the campus. We talked about it. But it was really neat to see it in action as they spent some time learning about how to use it in the classroom. So I wanted to let y'all know.
Good, that's good. Any other comments, board members? Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached, excuse me, I'm sorry, what?
Oh. Thank you, President Matthews.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the kids from the beginning of our meeting and how I think they have learned a lot about growth being an iterative process, approaching problems repeatedly, or even approaching our successes repeatedly in order to look for improvement. And I'm really happy that the district is teaching its lessons to our kids. I'm really glad that this district is teaching these lessons to each other through our professional development. And I hope to continue to contribute to that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Valenzuela. Any other comments, board members? We have reached the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned at 11:06.